Hello everybody, this is the Retro Bear once again back for another episode of Desert Island Games. Hope this episode finds you well, wherever you may be, whatever you are doing. And it's great to be back with you once again with another cracking guest on the Retro Bear Desert Island, where we maroon a YouTuber with some of their favourite games that they've played before, that they may have enjoyed and want to go back and play a bit more of, and a game that they completely and utterly hate, which for some reason has managed to make its way there to torment them until we decide that they need rescuing. Along the way, we'll be discussing their gaming history, of how they got here, what inspired them to carry on playing games and develop the collection they have now, as well as talking a little bit about the YouTube channel and the inevitable tangents which we tend to go off on these conversations. If you are new to Desert Island Games, there are previous episodes in the library on my channel. Hopefully you'll go back and listen to some of those if you've not heard any of those previously. They are quite lengthy, but they will take a lot of time out, but certainly worth the while. And the reason for doing this is to sort of present the image of the game, the person behind the gaming channel. And it's always nice to do that. Now, I say person behind the gaming channel, presented to them, because we don't actually see my guest usually, apart from his hands. He has the most famous hands on YouTube. There's no doubt about it. He is an Xbox 360 achievement. I say hunter, probably not the best way to, but he's making his way to 1 million gamer score. And I followed him along most of the way. We've probably known each other a good couple of years doing YouTube. And I have to say, has become a very good, close personal friend. A man who I spend a fair bit of time with on the Wrestle Talk Roundtable on the VHS Bootleggers channel as well. And also a member of the TNB on the TNB Gaming Podcast, which has been going for probably now, I'd say at least 12 months, possibly even more. I don't know. It's been a long, fun ride. But my guest this week, after that introduction, is Gurnaldinho Plays. It is Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Mr. Bear. How are you doing? You all right?
I am very well, thank you. I can now breathe after that introduction.
I was going to say that was a very long introduction. And by the way, Achievement Hunter is a perfect terminology to use for what we do. Achievement hunting, Achievement Hunter, or even Gamer Score Horror, if you please. Are all acceptable terms. But what I want to know is, you said cracking guests, mate. When are they turning up?
Oh, sorry, it was a previous episode. Sorry, I've run out of cracking guests. I'm now on to guests. I suppose,
just people who wave their hands about a bit, yeah.
Well, people who I just regard as people I know. That's probably the best way to describe it. So,
well, you're the man that gave me the first ever shout out and put me on my path, I like to think, mate. So
I know.
I've known you a very long time now.
It's a good couple of years, hasn't it? At least, I would say.
Oh, easily, yep. January 2019, the name Gurnaldinho was born. Gurnaldinho Plays was born with regards to a channel name. Sorry, Gurnaldinho has always been my gamer tag, but Gurnaldinho Plays channel name was born January 1st, 2019. And you shouted me out a couple of months later.
That's right. So, yes, it's been over 2 years. Time flies, doesn't it, when you're in the middle of the pandemic?
It's like it doesn't exist.
It is very true. It is very true. So what we're going to do, first of all, we'll get to what we're going to be talking about shortly, because it's going to be slightly different in this episode. And Rob's requested this episode. It all will come apparent as we talk about it, which is great, because it's coming from a slightly different angle. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting to sort of go through. So we'll come to that in a second. As always, I give an opportunity for people who don't know Rob's great channel. And it is a great channel. Really, really is. So not just gaming stuff. If you think it's just gaming, no, it's not. There's some other things on there which I'm going to give him the opportunity to explain about now. If you haven't heard of Rob's channel before, link in the description below, as always. Rob, educate the listening masses as to, if they haven't come across you before, what's Gurnaldinho Plays all about.
Well, it is about gaming, but it is about more as well, because I genuinely like to entertain and, believe it or not, attempt to make people laugh occasionally as well. So, but it started off as a gaming channel.
Waiting, but
still waiting. I mean, it started off as a gaming channel, which was literally just going to be an achievement hunting channel. See, you used the correct term, mate. But it developed into, I thought I want to do pickups, and I was never meant to be on screen in any way, shape or form, but we worked our way around that. We did pickups, but I've developed into just like everything that I enjoy doing, like opening things of a mystery nature is something I've always liked, I collect football stickers and cards as a kid, so I decided to branch out from that just because I'd finished with that and I wanted to find something else. So it was like gladiator stickers, masks, Thundercats, whatever. It was just like things of a mystery nature. And that's never really left me, but I've never really had a way to sort of do something about it and present it in some sort of form. And that's what YouTube has given me. So I do like 5 random packs where I open up packs of trading cards in a big bucket full of lots of different ones. I pull out one at a time. I do blind bags as well, and it's just I just love opening things of a mystery nature. I've done boxes, but I mean the favorite one at the moment is charity shop Tat Gold, because I love going around charity shops as well. So I literally find the most randomest stuff ever, or just stuff that I like that I wouldn't normally buy, and just put it in front of a camera and talk about it. You know, like books with very interesting titles. Which
that one that you did recently. I say recently because it was recently, but when this goes out, it's going to be sort of weeks ago. But yeah, that was a very strange book indeed.
Yes. If you ever thought of crossing a book between the actor Benedict Cumberbatch and cross-stitching, then that episode is for you.
Yeah, and that book is definitely for you. If not, I think it's very much a cry for help. I think more than anything else, because just watching it, I thought they've put into some serious detail on this, haven't they? It wasn't so much the fact that it was the stuff he's done, like Sherlock and etc. It was the weird stuff, like the dragon.
Yes, I believe that is some of the film he's been in, and the fact that he photobombed someone once upon a time and the photo went famous.
That's right. That was
something to do with an otter as well.
Yeah,
it was weird. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, very strange. Very strange. You thought you just want to do a cross stitch of his face or something like, you know, as Sherlock or Doctor Strange or the other roles that he's done. But yeah, that was you can probably see
it was
why
probably
that
pre-Doctor Strange, I think, to be fair as well. But yeah, they would have covered that if it was available at the time.
I would have thought so.
But no, I was going to say I'm not just a gaming channel now. Probably fair enough. I think a good assumption now is an entertainment channel, because whereas there was a little bit of entertainment and all gaming, and now it's pretty much down the middle, I'd say 50-50. But you know, I like to think there's something a little bit for everybody. Hopefully, if you only watch the gaming stuff, that's fine. Someone comes along and just enjoys the blind bags when they pop up every now and again, then great, watch that. I was going to say, I don't mind. I just want people to watch what they want to watch, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and a bit of variety is always good. We've said it on previous episodes where if you have a channel, I mean, my channel is primarily gaming, although there are other things that I want to do on it, and I have done on it, and they've gone reasonably well. I must be honest, they've gone quite well, and I know you get a lot of enjoyment out of doing these different ones that perhaps when you first start your channel weren't the idea, and what you've now, I say, moved into more of, and because you do it because you enjoy it, and that comes across in your videos.
Yeah, I love doing them, so I do them. But don't you find that, like, once you've been watching a YouTuber for a while, and even if it's someone that you never get to know, you kind of sort to get to know them because you're watching them, and then when they start doing other stuff, you're like, well, okay, this guy's a wrestling fan as well. Let's hear what he has to say about that. You know, he's doing this as well. Let's see what he offers when he does this as well, or she. Sorry, you know, it's So don't be afraid to branch out if you want to.
No, I agree.
It's YouTube, as we keep saying. YouTube.
Yeah, it's all about you. And if you sitting there in front of a camera, you know, as we're doing now, just talking, and as we have done for the past couple of years, just sit there and talking to a camera, as a way of expressing your hobbies and interests and sharing them with everybody else, that's the best way to do it. So, yeah. Yeah, I like the extra stuff you do. I mean, I don't watch the blind bags so much, but I love the charity shop tat. That's superb. I really do.
Yeah, bear in mind that's still in its very early days. That's surprisingly doing better than I thought it would. So it's nice that people are entertained by it. As I say, I just want to entertain. So good. Well, if you haven't seen Rob's channel, go across and have a look. The link will be in the description below. And I'm sure you'll find something on there that'll appeal to you, because there's an awful lot of stuff on there. Like I said, the gaming stuff's on there, which we're going to get to shortly anyway. But the stuff that Rob's doing with the blind bags and the charity shop stuff and the little unboxings and the Funkos that you pick up occasionally, and the boxes you get sent from Ross's other half as well. Yeah, she's done a couple of cracking boxes. Kudos to her.
So it's all good. So yeah, go and have a look. Rising Star on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. You did that fantastic stream last year as well, didn't you? That live 24-hour gaming stream as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, we was in lockdown, and me working in airport was always going to be furloughed for quite some long time. And I just thought, well, I'm able to protect myself and shield myself. And then I've even got a very, very close friend of mine that love it a bit. She's in caring, so she never had the time off. And I just think of people like her that having to go out there and face it front, every day, and just anybody that has to go out there and face it every day. And I thought, okay, there's me sat at my home, being able to be perfectly safe. What can I give back to it? So I thought, well, I've got the time. I've always wanted to do one as well. So why not do a 24-hour live stream and donate it to the NHS and try and give something back while I'm stuck at home being safe while they're not. So
yeah, it was a good effort. It was about 250 quid, was it, something like that you raised?
It was literally a pound short of 300. So
right, okay, look,
it was 299. So, which yes. I was only aiming for 100. I thought 100 quid, I'd be happy with that. Hit three figures, but no, it was amazing how everybody literally turned up at the end. There was always somebody watching. There were people through the night, everything. There was always somebody watching, someone interacting. But at the end, when loads of people turned up, even some for the first time. I didn't care if it was the first time they turned up, and all was there. That was pretty amazing. It's just going to show how awesome this community can be.
That's why I'm popping in. I was in there for the last couple of hours, and the amount of people who came in for the last hour just to try and get you over that line and give you the inspiration and the drive to carry on. And by probably at that point, you would have been absolutely exhausted.
I mean, one of your previous guests might have had the same thing, old Femi Chicken, CD one for mental health. But I was fine. I was doing really well. I'd had my energy drinks, I'd had my food, I'd have everything. I'd everything laid out, so everything was to hand. And the last hour, just bang, whoa, literally hit me. That last hour, I was really struggling. Yeah. But nothing before it. All of a sudden, that last hour just hit. But yeah, obviously, it was just like, it's only an hour to go. I'm fine. I can do this.
Yeah, that was it. But yeah, I mean, another great thing as well. And community thing, which is good. At the heart of the community, working hard and, great tribute to those people who worked so hard and diligently last year to get us through what was going on, which is still going on. But,
sadly, yeah.
We'll see. Okay, so that's a bit about Rob's channel. Let's move on to the gaming stuff, which is the main reason why we're here. Now, we said it's going to be a bit of a special episode, this one. And the reason being, I'm going to let Rob explain, but I'll say it's going to be an arcade special. So, Rob, if you'd like to just give us a brief overview of why we're doing the arcade special here, and then we'll start getting into the episode.
I was going to say, I'll put it forward to you, and we could have done Norm 1 if you wanted, but I said about doing an arcade edition because how much the arcades have pretty much led to where I am now. If it wasn't for them, I could, you never know, I might not have got into them, and also it keeps me away from picking, gears 1 to 5 as well. So there you go. It's got its mentioned down your drinks.
There you go.
But no, the arcade means a hell of a lot to me. It was just, we'll start. It's how I started. So let's say without the arcades, I may not have developed into what I do now. But basically, I remember as a very, very young boy, just couple of years in a walk-in or whatever, my mum and dad, they used to own a fixed caravan site, which when we went, obviously we used it for holidays, and then they would rent it out when we weren't on holidays, yada yada yada. But on that campsite caravan site, was obviously it had its own entertainment function centre building. It had its own arcade, and mum and dad just like, oh, should we go into the amusements? And obviously I didn't know what amusements was. It was the very first time I walked into one. It's just amazing that of all things, as a young boy, that lots of things you don't remember from that age because obviously you've just grown up and that's what happens. But I can still remember walking into that arcade. Row of machines on my right-hand side, and right at the very front of that row of machines was one of these Popeye things where you did the arm wrestling with, but it had an actual, fiberglass arm. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the carpet was red. It was a dingy oranging lighting. And I can just remember walking around looking at all these things, taking in the sights and sounds. And I literally turned around that first corner and sat there with a 3-player cabinet of Rampage. And I was a young lad. I thought, watching things getting destroyed was quite fun. And and monsters was quite cool as well. And you could be one of these 3 monsters and just smash the hell out of these buildings. And that was the level. Go again. And I thought, this is great. And that was it. I said, Mum, Dad, can I have 10p? I've got to have a go at this. And that's what kicked it off. I went into the arcade, and I'd always want to go on Rampage. that was a hell of a coin guzzling machine, especially if you're however young I was. I think I was still in single digit figures. I don't know. But, I was there every time I went in there. But, what branched me out is because I was just like, well, my sister always comes in as well. What is she like? And she used to always go to APB and play that, the top-down police game.
That's a blast from the past.
Where you chase criminals and that.
Don't hear that one mentioned at all.
So I thought, well, when she gets off it, I might put 10p in that and have a go at that. I mean, I could barely reach where I was useless, and but I still enjoyed it, and it just opened my mind up. I was going, well, why don't we try some of all these other ones? And from that sort of initial sort of day, or that sort of caravan, owning that caravan and that caravan site, just led me into loving video games. And everywhere I went, I just wanted to go to the arcade. Mum and Dad would say, "Oh, should we go out for the weekend, or go out for a Saturday? Where should we go? Let's go to Southend, which is only an hour away from me, from where we are. Because I might be able to get to the seafront and get in the arcades." And that is literally where the passion has grown from. In a way, it's still there. It's never left.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the arcades are not what they used to be. But in my mind, gaming was always at its best when I was growing up and the arcades were alive. And they were alive. They were rows upon machines you played, not coin pushers and ticket machine winning things, and not just a row of teddy machines out the front, but even more inside, and there's the odd driving game and something else, which is still an interactive game you win tickets out of, that they've mugged a retro game off with doing.
Yeah. It's strange how much they've changed. I mean, last time I went into an arcade, it was full of all those machines you mentioned, and there was a couple of old arcade cabinets in there. But I see them, occasionally around, but I won't go into one because I know I'm going to be disappointed. It's like, do I go in here and think, oh, I might find something from ages ago that I want to play? But most times I'd walk in and say, this isn't like what I used to remember, and walk straight out again.
Do you know, another fine example of me going to an arcade was, again, like my parents have always, and I love them for it, and I'm glad they actually had this approach, but they were never a stay at home for Christmas family. They were never stay at home for an entire weekend kind of family. We was never that. We always wanted to go out, which will go nicely into the first system I ever owned when we get to that. But, and we always went to Butlins Minehead, literally always Butlins Minehead every Christmas for X amount of years. Even past me being 18, we still went, do you want to go? Yeah, let's go there. And there was an arcade in there called Cracker Jacks. It's situated there. And I said that there was actually lots of little arcades dotted around as well. And every year I used to go there, and obviously I'd remember what it looked like previous year. So I'd walk in there and go, well, Time Crisis used to be there. Why is it's over there now? And Mortal Kombat 2 used to be right in front of me, but now it's against the wall, and something, whatever else is there. And I know where everything was. But where I'm going with this now is that, my mum had a very sort of significant birthday recently, and her desire for that significant birthday, doing my mum justice here, she'd hate if I said her age out loud here, by the way. But she wanted for us to basically all go back to Butlins Minehead like we used to do.
Wow.
And of course, I went back there, and the building for Crack Jacks is not even there. It's gone. And it's got one of these massive tents in the middle now, which is kind of an all-weather, everything in one kind of centre now. And it's got this amusement in the middle, and it's exactly what I've described to you. Yeah. There was a little offset bit which had a couple of racing games. I can't remember what they were now. It's so sad. And then there was a sports bar which had a couple of pinball machines in the far corner, and that was it. And I was just like, this is the modern day arcade, and I really feel sorry for kids because they'll think it's fascinating while they're young and they're winning tickets and getting, I don't know, a penny chew for 20 tickets, which just cost them £1. But, then they're not going to have the experiences and memories me and you have got.
No.
Going to arcades and growing up.
No, that's right. I mean, I used to go bowling probably about the turn of the early 2000s, and where we used to go bowling, they'd have a small it was like a small arcade, but there was Daytona 4-player, there was Star Wars arcade, and there was a couple of others as well. So they were still around at that point, but that was probably the dying dregs of it, really. I know, of course, and you know, I'm sure you've been on that. You've been to the arcade clubs, have you? The ones that
I
are
haven't
sprung
yet.
up. You have.
No,
I
unfortunately
thought you
not.
might have
Obviously,
done.
they're very north of me, aren't they? Unfortunately, they're a hell of a distance for me.
They're north of me, and they're still a hell of a distance
I
as
was going
well.
to say, yeah, and you're 2 hours drive from where I am.
That's it.
But
But
it's funny you mentioned bowling alleys because again that was another reason we went bowling alleys. There's always a couple of machines behind you. Do you know what? I used to go to my swimming lessons as a kid, and there was a couple of machines, and there was always a
yeah,
machine in a recreational centre, whatever it was, in one some way, shape, or form. I used to go. The reason why I ever learned to swim, I think, was because I really wanted to go because I had a WrestleFest outside.
oh yeah. Well,
And
there you
every
go.
time I went swimming, I was, as long as I went swimming and I did well and didn't create, as my mum used to say, I could have a go on WrestleFest afterwards. And they had, was it Super Football Champ as well, and a sit down 2-player version of that, and that was it. I just, he drove me on to learn to swim. Who says video games can be,
Yeah,
bad? They can
exactly.
really make them a reward, and they can make you learn to swim.
Yeah, and give you physical exercise as well at the same time in a completely indirect way, but you at least getting exercise and staying fit and healthy, and at the same time going to play an arcade. I mean, we used to go to the cinema every Saturday. There was an arcade at the cinema.
Yes.
You won't be aware of this because we're recording this in advance. But when I speak to Generation Pixel, we were talking about arcade games in chip shops and cafes because that's where
They used to
they were first started. Yeah.
used to have one machine and normally a fruit machine as well next to it. Well,
Yeah.
mine did anyway.
But it used to be all over the place, and now you just can't find them. It's good that there are now designated, retro themed arcade clubs. I'm trying to find the right word for it, but that these places begin to sort of spring up all over the place now. I know somewhere in Birmingham as well, which is like a bar, which has also got the arcade games in there and based around that. So there is a renewed interest, but it's that appealing to that retro audience, or the people like you say, you and me, who grew up with these sort of things, to go back and play them.
Yeah.
And it'll bring new people in, but you're not going to recapture what we had then. It's a completely different time now.
You're not going to recapture it, but I think that even people that haven't grown up with arcades are now hearing about these places and going to them. So in a way, it is bringing it back and bringing it to people that never experienced it, and obviously the people that did experience it getting a chance to actually experience it again. But for me, the last case of an arcade for me was when I went to college, and the college that I went to was a town neighbouring to mine, and there was actually a Sega park upstairs in the shopping centre there for a couple of years. And obviously that's where I spent every break. As I said, I love arcades. Even if I had the latest console at home and a full library of the games, even if I owned the game at home, this used to drive my mum and dad nuts. They'd buy me the game for whatever system, and then I'd go to the arcade and I'd play it. And they'd be like, "What are you doing that for?" And I said, "You cannot beat the arcade experience, Cannot, the noise, the sounds, the standing up, someone saying, "Can I join in?" if it's a co-op game, or, are you taking challenges if it's a one-on-one game, Just can't beat it.
It's the sound. I agree with everything you said there, but for me, it's the sound. When you walk into it, just the complete cacophony of noise, all the different beeps and bongs and tunes playing. You'd walk into an arcade and you'd hear Turtles playing. You'd hear the theme tune. Think, they got. You would have to look for it. They've got Turtles in here somewhere. You could hear it.
I tell you, if they had a metal slug, you'd always hear that noise of loads of enemies dying. Wherever that machine was in the arcade, you'd hear it.
Or the Daytona music, or by sound only, not sight. You'd have to look for something. You'd hear it, and you'd always walk around saying, "Have they got one of these in here?" If you couldn't hear it, you'd walk around and they go, "Oh, yeah, they got this over here, brilliant." I'm looking for this game. You go in there with an idea. You want to play this game, walk around it. You always be disappointed they ain't got it, but you'd find something else to play. I mean, I saw afterburner hydraulic arcade machines. I saw sit down outruns. I saw enduro racer. I saw Dragon's Lair. All those big sort of 4-player versions as well of various different games.
Space Harrier.
Yeah,
got to say that for sure, not we? Space Harrier as well. The sit-down moving Space Harrier.
Just so much.
The sit-in Jurassic Park Lost World shooting game.
My favourite. Was my favourite.
Shut the curtains as well. Black out all the light.
Yeah. And you can't recapture that on a home console, no matter what you try and do about it. So it's nice that these places are springing up, but I don't know. Do you think it would inspire people to go and play these games if they hadn't heard of them before? to actually go to one of these old retro arcade clubs and experience games like that. 'Cause I'm not sure it would do, because you wouldn't sit down generations now and trying to get them to play tape-based games or early
No,
PC or ST or Amiga stuff. You wouldn't really, would you?
no. But I was going to say, obviously, the arcades, they kind of died mid-2000s, didn't they? Like, properly died, as it was, when games really started disappearing out of them to a large extent. So I'd like to think that, today's youth that have grown up enough might still see something that they like, modern-ish to what they play and like it, and then try some of the older stuff, like the Outrun 2. Was it Outrun 2 that came out in the arcade?
I think it was, yeah.
That's how old's that now? That's actually aged more than you realise now, but it's still very similar to sort of a modern racing arcade game that you would get. So, I mean, there's hope. But I was going to say, it's better. It's certainly better than nothing, isn't it? It's better than nothing, and hopefully these people will take to it and keep the arcade spirit alive, as I say.
Absolutely, because it's a massive part of gaming history. There's no way around it. Half the games that people would have played growing up from our era anyway, and more so mine probably because I'm a little bit older than yourself, but it was always the excitement that a arcade game was coming out on a home system.
There was always a significant gap. Always.
Yeah, and you always look forward to, as you played it in the arcade. Oh, I can't wait even though it's going to come out on the Spectrum or something, it's going to be absolutely terrible and nothing like the arcade game. You'd still look forward to it. And
well, sometimes you'd look forward to it, but also sometimes you'd wonder if they'd make it, because not everything got ported.
That's very true. There were some games that got. There used to be a feature in Retro Gamer magazine, which was left in the arcades.
Yeah,
and they sort of highlight some. I mean, some of them were rubbish and didn't deserve to come out of there anyway. But there were some hidden gems. I think there were hidden gems. Like Metal Jesus watching this, maybe we can dream. And so there were some good ones that are left behind, and then there were also average games which got converted, which ended up somehow being better than the arcade game because they were more suited to being played on a home system. So it's a fascinating subject, and I think, like a lot of people, Rob, you got your start there. I remember probably my first gaming experience was either going to be the 2600 or an arcade, but I probably focused more on the home stuff afterwards, and then I was dropping into arcades for probably about 10-15 years after that, until, as you said, they sort of died a death, really. So but that's a great choice, and what a great place to be brought.
And that's why we're doing an arcade edition, aren't we? So, and we're sticking to arcade machine releases only.
Yep. I mean, you have a gaming history, which we'll carry on talking about now. So it's not all just about the arcade, but the games that you selected for your list, which we'll get to shortly, are the arcade games, and really looking forward to discussing those. But you touched. I know you mentioned this in our podcast about where you saw your first sort of gaming system. So obviously the arcade was a big experience, but you just touched on it briefly about the fact that your parents realised that was probably an interest or a hobby that's going to be something they wanted to at least feed you. So they sort of got you your first system after that, didn't they?
Yeah, they accepted it. Obviously, they did want me to play outside as a child while I was growing up, and I always said this I loved them for it. I really do. I wanted a console for longer than I ever got one, but I would never take those years back of playing outside in the street and think, that's something that don't exist anymore, isn't it? Kids playing in the street.
Yeah.
But I lived in a cul-de-sac as well, which helped when I grew up. But eventually they, after asking, can I want my own games console? I want this, I want that, and they were still very apprehensive about it. And obviously, what I said to you about, we was always very much a go out and go away family, So when I spoke to them about handhelds and said that I wouldn't mind, a Game Boy or a Game Gear, they kind of warmed to it, and they thought, and not sickness, but I was a hell of a bad traveller. I used to get bored of being in the car after 5 minutes. And it was almost the perfect solution for everybody because, it literally would keep me quiet, keep me invested in something. And the car journey for my parents became a lot better because I wasn't asking after 10 minutes, the old cliche line of, are we nearly there yet? Because I just hate being a passenger in a car. Probably still do to this day, to be honest with you. I'm not a big lover of driving, even, actually driving myself still to this day. Maybe it's just something that's ingrained in me. But yeah, I hoped for Game Gear and asked for Game Gear, and they went quiet. And then one birthday, this big box came out wrapped up. I opened it up, and inside was the Game Gear. I did choose it over the Game Boy. I went for the color and I went for the blue Hedgehog because I thought it looked cooler and it looked more fun. It's just my personal opinion at the time. Nothing against Mario. But yeah,
I'm not sure he's listening. You're all right.
Oh, right. I'm a bit worried. But no, no, we opened up the Game Gear, and there was another little box with it. We opened up that little box, and it was Castle Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. So that Mum and Dad thought it'd be nice for him to have a choice. So they got me another game as well, which they chose, and bloody good choice, wasn't it? It's a hell of a game as well. But yeah, that's where it went, and that Game Gear. It never really. We all know the battery problems, so let's not go there. But my Game Gear always lived plugged into an AC adapter at home, or pretty much in the car, because you could buy the cigarette one, because cars had cigarette lighter adapters back then, which had a nice long lead, which led to reached, that's the word, to the back. So I could sit in the back, behind my dad while he was driving, and it would reach, and I'd play the Game Gear in the car on journeys as well. I had a little case for it to go in, not the official one, but one we made up. And the boxes stayed at home. I kept the boxes, thankfully, because I was that sort of child as well. I didn't like throwing boxes away, which was a very good decision, wasn't it?
It sort of followed you all the way through, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, and the little the collector in me was there from the early days. But yeah, the little carts stayed in the little plastic shrouds in this carry case, and that was it. What came around with me. And yeah, no, absolutely. I'll say, I've always got deep-rooted feelings for the Game Gear. Nothing against the Game Boy. Game Boy I actually really like as well. It's a handheld I picked up or got accidentally very much later in life. I was around an ex-girlfriend's house once upon a time, and the parents happened to be cleaning out stuff, and they picked up this turquoise colour Game Boy and went, "Whose is this?" No one spoke, because she's got 3 kids, including my ex-girlfriend. And she went, "Whose is this?" And no one said anything. She went, "Right, I'm throwing it out." And nobody said anything. And I went, "Wow. Can I have that?" And that is my colour Game Boy. That's what I've got. I saved it. It had the Super Mario Land. It's got more than one Mario game on one cut. But yeah, and yeah, no, I saved it, and I've still got that. And I like the Game Boy. I've got nothing against the Game Boy at all. I was never into the Sega Nintendo wars. I had what I liked, and I'd go around mates and want to play their Nintendo stuff. But yeah, no, Game Gear, absolutely adore it.
Did you break into a cold sweat when you said, "Right, I'm going to throw it away"?
I panicked. Said, no, I was like, "No, you bloody won't." Was what went on in my head. I was like, I panicked, but at the same time got very excited. I was like, I'm going to cop a free Game Boy here.
Yeah.
I would say this was very much later in life. What was I? I was late 20s. Yeah, but she was 22 and I was 28 or something. Yeah, something like that.
But you're not going to pass up the opportunity of a free Game Boy. The amount of stories we've had on here so far about people telling me about things that got thrown away or sold and they weren't aware of. It's actually nice to find somebody who sort of did it in reverse. Somebody else would have thrown something away. And he said, "No, hang on, I'll have that. I'll rescue that."
Well, if it was a day I hadn't been there, that'd be in a landfill somewhere in this world.
Another one bites the dust. Another unidentified console. Well, not unidentified, but unaccounted for console from someone's collection disappeared. Someone's probably sitting there thinking, "What happened to my turquoise Game Boy? Where did that end up? Who had that?" Yeah. Oh, I was going to throw it out, but somebody else had it. That's where it comes from. Yeah. You mentioned. I was going to ask you very briefly. You mentioned your sister about gaming. Was she into games as much as you were when you were younger?
No, not really. No, she went in the arcade. It never really caught on with her. There was a phase where I had my next system in the line. Are we covering that yet?
Not yet. I'm talking about Game Gear a bit more. Yeah.
But yeah, and then like instead of sharing one, we both had our own ones because Mum and Dad bought her one as well. The next system in the line we both got second hand. So I was past the Game Gear. I was always very late to systems because I was always happy with the one I had. A lot longer than most people. I didn't have to have the new one. I was just like, well, I ain't finished with this yet, so I always kept them a lot longer. Yeah. But no, she had that, and she didn't really keep hold of it for too long, and I ended up with her games. In fact, a couple of those games that are in my backdrop to my videos actually belonged to her originally, and when she didn't want it anymore, I got everything. I got a spare system and all her games.
Oh, it's not too bad then. Oh, right.
But no, it never resonated with her. I mean, she has a Wii now for fitness reasons, just like everybody else. You know, that it's not a gamer. I know you're into your Wii for gaming reasons, but non-gamers tend to gravitate towards the Wii, didn't they? Because they think they can get fit using it.
Yeah.
And she's another one that's done that. And plus, it's fun to play with the kids.
That's what they're there for. I always tell people I bought mine for fitness reasons as well. just added 680 games on top of it, on top of that. But that's what it's there for. Favorite Game Gear games that you had?
Ooh, tricky. I always preferred the Sonic on the Game Gear, which is the same Sonic on the Master System, by the way, over its Mega Drive counterpart. So, can quite easily say that. Like again, a lot of this is going to go down to nostalgia, but Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion is a beautiful game. It runs so smoothly, it sounds so brilliant, and looks so beautiful as well. Absolutely love that game. That game gave me a little bit of grief back then as a kid, but I eventually got it done. But I had the Streets of Rage on the Game Gear. That was all right. That was only 5 levels, and you could only be Axel and Blaze. There was no Adam available in it, but it was all right. It was all right, not the greatest. I quite like Monaco GP, even though a lot of people hate it. But I think that was the third game I owned. And then, order of buying. Obviously, Sonic came with it. Then I got Castle of Illusion. And out of my own money, I bought Monaco GP because I liked Formula One back then as a kid, not so much now. And then I got Streets of Rage, which still has its $24.99 price tag stuck to the outside of the box.
You still got that stuck on there?
Still stuck on there. I got bought it from Dixon's with my birthday money one year. So
I like seeing things like that when I used to leave them on all the time when I was younger. I haven't got so many now. I'd take most of them off. I always used to leave the labels on so I could look in the future and see how much it paid for something. But that's obviously gone now. So
yeah, that's going to say a lot of it's nostalgic based with when it comes to favourites. Like I like quite the Disney. I got the Jungle Book game as well. You know, I like a lot of the Disney ones. I think the Batman Return game's on. It's really good actually as well. Quite enjoyed that. But never really come across many stinkers. I think the only one I ever sold is I never took to Tasmania on the Game Gear, and Sonic Spinball.
Sonic Spinball. Tasmania is terrible.
But Sonic Spinball is even worse. That I think actually I've still got the Tasmania cart only, but the Sonic Spinball is the only game I've ever owned for the Game Gear and got rid of. Traded it in for Super Off-Road, which is a fantastic little port on the Game Gear as well.
I don't think one of those games. I don't think it's a bad port of Super Off-Road. I think it's really, really good. But Sonic Spinball just a bad idea on any system. I think terrible idea.
Yeah, it didn't work. Had a great principle when you think about it, but executed poorly. I think.
Oh yeah. It's. I think it appears on everything. You can't get away from it. It's a terrible game. Really.
They still stick it on Great Hits collections.
I know. And nobody likes it. I've not come across one person who's got a good thing to say about Sonic Spinball. It's very, very strange. Right then, so moving on from the Game Gear, obviously big influence, and like you said, you have these systems, you hold on to them for as long as you want to. You're not one of these people who wanted to gravitate to a new system straight away. So your next system, staying with Sega,
Mega Drive. Yeah.
What year was this?
Oh, I couldn't tell you exactly. It'd been out for a few years though. Because when was the Mega Drive out? Was it 90? It's around about that. Because I know Sonic 1's either 90 or 91. It was probably out a little bit before that.
You could get the Mega Drive on import towards the end of 89, start of 90, I think it was, and then I think it was officially released over here in 1990.
Yeah, I don't think I got mine till around about, I would say 94, and it was a used one from a cash converters that my parents bought me.
I think same year I got mine. I bought mine off a bloke at college. So.
But I was quite happy with I was still buying new games for my Game Gear. I still had stuff to do for it, stuff I wanted for it. As I say, I was quite happy. But it was. I think the chance was almost. Again, it was my parents actually presenting me the chance, rather than me asking for it as well. It's just like, well, do you want one of these? And it was like, well, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And it's obviously it was bought. It came with Sonic, like it pretty much always did for quite a while. I was gonna say, I know I prefer the Game Gear version, but I still love the Sonic one on the Mega Drive. That was it. I had that for many years. I'm going to say that overlapped the next console era as well, mate. I had it for ages.
Yeah, I'd mine for probably 5-6 years. I think it was before I moved it on. I was still picking up games for it and adding to it, and I loved it. I mean, I loved playing on it beforehand when I played other people's, but actually having my own was just great. And
I
I used to add the box for it and everything, and box games, and brilliant.
Yeah, like I bought mine without. Mine obviously came without a box, but I've still got mine. It hasn't been hooked up for years, so
Oh,
could do with being tested. I've got to be honest with you. I know the pads have become knackered because I tried using them on my Retron 5 and they were I think they're just very unresponsive. Something's happened there and they're not quite right. But yeah, I mean, I did sell a few games to get my next system, but I've kept all the ones that you see in the backdrop to my videos, except with the exception of Tailspin, are all my original ones or ones that were my sister's, and then she just decided not to use it anymore. Like the Lion King was hers, Ghouls and Ghosts was hers, and that's not an easy. Yeah. Oh no, Toy Story I bought at London Game Market a couple of years ago. That's not an original one, but there's a game we're going to mention later as well, which become an absolute must and lost hours at home to that. I mean, Sonic 2 blew me away. NHLPA Hockey 93 is a cracking game. In my eyes, it's my favourite ice hockey game ever. It really is. Loved it.
It's quite funny because I can't remember all the games, but I know that my Mega Drive collection from original, when I had it originally, is probably got a lot better quality games than the one I've got now. But I've probably got more games now that I didn't have in the first place. So yeah, I don't have a lot of the games I had when I was younger. I've got a couple. I've got Road Rash, Sonic 2, just something at the top of me what I've got on the shelf. And there was games like I played like Talmit's Adventure. I played that on the import version. But things like Golden Axe 2 I had, which I haven't got anymore. Captain America, The Avengers. I wish I'd still got those two games, because not only did I spend loads of time playing Golden Axe 2 and finishing it, and Captain America, The Avengers, but they're also quite pricey games now. And I was like, it's going to be more difficult for me to get those back.
Obviously, I had a stroke of fortune because I literally, when I was saving up for the console after the Mega Drive, it was literally all the games were on the table and they were pretty much priced up at $5 each, except for one because I was never letting that go in a million years. I was going to say Mortal Kombat 2 went, Streets of Rage 2 went, the Golden Axes went, and nobody picked up Mega Turrican. And I still got it.
Yeah.
Still got it, box complete, and now it's worth like 150 quid. Mental. Still got it.
I had Mortal Kombat as well. That's another one.
Mortal Kombat 2 was brilliant. A great port on the Mega Drive. The first one was a bit ropey. It was the better of the two, but it wasn't great. But Mortal Kombat 2 was a great port on Mega Drive, if you ask me, for what the Mega Drive could do.
And you mentioned the NHL hockey game. I mean, two games I played was the FIFA 95. So I absolutely loved playing that. And the other one was Madden 94. Put so much time into those games on the Mega Drive.
I played 96 a lot because when I was at secondary school, there was a kid at school that had it before everybody else. And he went through a phase of actually loaning it out. And I borrowed it for a couple of weeks. And I was like, wow, look at all these leagues you can play in. And it was just amazing. And then, when I had to give it back to him after a couple of weeks, someone else's turn, I asked for it for my birthday and got it, and that was it. I just played it again and again and again. The very last game I bought for the system, actually, was a game that I possibly would have picked had we not done an arcade edition. It was Mega Bomberman. I put absolute ton of hours into that. Absolutely adore that game. Story mode on it's brilliant as well. Really good. Highly recommend it.
I said FIFA 96. I think I bought that for about 20p from a charity shop a couple of 3 years back. Yeah,
that's still my original birthday copy sitting on a shelf there.
You see it about quite a bit, but for 20p for a Mega Drive game, I don't care if it's a FIFA game or not. I'm nabbing that.
Yeah, the 97 one's good because it's got indoor football, but
that's been mentioned. I think we touched on that in the Feed Me Chicken episode. I think you mentioned that as one of the games that you put a lot of time into. You obviously big fan of the Mega Drive then?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
couldn't be more a fan of it.
Yeah, it's. I still think it looks the original one. Did you have a Mark 1 or a Mark 2? I've got to ask you.
I had a Mark 1. My sister had a Mark 2. Okay, so I've got both. I ended up with both. But I prefer the Mark 1. I've got to be honest with you. It's just something about that. It's got that proper retro look to it, hasn't it?
It has.
Really like it.
And it's also got the stereo headphone socket as well, which I always like on that. Cause
Yeah, the slider.
that is
Tell
really
me you
good.
didn't slide the volume backwards and forwards every
Oh,
time before you turned it on, just because you
yeah.
could.
Yeah, it's just got. I said it's got that iconic look. The joypads as well were fantastic. I really did
Yeah,
really like those.
they had a cool shape to them, didn't they?
They did.
Back in the day, they was a cool shape.
Sort of like batarang, cross between a batarang and a kidney. It's a strange shape to them, but they were completely different. It was just a great system altogether, and everything about it I like. I'm not a Sega nut by any stretch of the imagination, but it looked cool. It looked really eye catching. The boxes were great. The originally the black boxes, reverse the Master System. Master System were white boxes with the checkered background, wasn't it? With the sort of like graph paper background. The early Mega Drive stuff was a black with the white lines on it, which is sort of exactly the same. And you're going to look at them on the shelf, and they just look really, really impressive. Really, really impressive. And so many great games for it. And I always associate that system with good arcade, because a lot of the games would have come out of the arcade onto that. Not saying they didn't come out on the Super Nintendo, but you always associated the big games. Same with the Master System as well. I always associate the quality, the arcade conversions that came out on the Master System and the Mega Drive for me tipped the balance, because those are the games that I wanted to play. I know the NES would have had some very good original games, and they did, and the SNES would have had exactly the same. But for me, I wanted to play the games I played in the arcade. So if I wanted to play Afterburner, I can't play that on the SNES because they're in a version of it, and there is a Master System version, but I want to play the Mega Drive Afterburner 2 on the Mega Drive. It's about as close as you could possibly get to it at that time.
Yeah. No, it's gonna. Without ruining one of my picks later, there's the SNES did get one particular game first, which probably is a slightly better port, or it runs a bit better. But we'll get into that later. But yeah. But you're right. No,
definitely associated that with a real bit of quality. Okay, let's move away from your gaming history, and we'll dive into the first few games on your list. Now, we sort of say 6 games to take with Desert Island. We don't, there can be favourite games. There can be games of a certain genre. A lot of people have picked games based on the fact that they were stuck on a desert island, and those are the sort of games that would occupy the time, or they'd be able to experience properly and enjoy. Because there's always the temptation to pick 6 of your favourite games and realise there's probably maybe, 13, 14 hour gameplay hours between the 6 of them, and you might complete them really quickly, in which case you're going to have to play that game that you don't like. So, but we don't limit it to consoles or anything like that. It can be any game from any system. It could be online gaming, whatever. And the first one on your list is going right the way back.
Right the way back. Yes. Well, let me just start off saying, obviously, I've gone again, not just pick 6 favourites because I love them. I've really, again, I've taken the situation into very careful consideration, and I've tried to sort of
everybody's taking it seriously in season 2.
Spread the genres and go for something with a bit of replayability and sort of lasting, wants to play sort of feeling that a game can give you. And I must admit, this one went down last because I wrote down all the other ones, and I thought, well, what else? I've pretty much covered every other genre that I love. What haven't I thought of? And I thought, well, how's about we think, is there anything proper retros in, like, go back, way back, that, that would appeal to me? And I thought, well, bloody hell, of course, why not take Space Invaders? Because every time you pick up a Taito collection, or certainly I do, I say, oh yeah, I've got this Taito collection like the one I got on the PSP. Went straight for Space Invaders. And I mean, the main reason is it's an absolute classic. Don't get me wrong, Pac-Man is, but I can quite easily get bored of Pac-Man after a little while. To me, it's... But, games of that era were very much... Obviously, we talk about they were high score driven, weren't they?
Yes.
They were... Well, I know Pac-Man did have a kill screen, and but they were very much... A lot of them were endless, or appeared endless, because it was all about getting that high score. So I thought, well, what game is there like that I could quite easily sit and play for hours? And I literally do. Every time I get hold of Space Invaders, it's one more go. It's iconic. I mean, what could you say about Space Invaders, as I said before? But I just thought it'd be perfect, wouldn't it? You could always go back to it and just try and beat your score over and over again.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why we are where we are now. If a game like that hadn't captured the imagination of people, I think 77 wasn't it? 1977.
Yeah, late 70s. I know that much.
Yeah, I remember seeing Space Invader cabinet when I was very young. It was that image of that Space Invader on the side of it, and
Yeah.
you just again iconic image. You just remember that. And my experience with Space Invaders first up was a 2600, but I used to play that for hours on end. I have at some point in my life played the Space Invaders arcade, but for me, the 2600 was that. But I love playing it, and it's one of those games that if you want to get into gaming, you've got to experience playing the original. You've got to have a go at it and see what the fuss was all about. And it's just fascinating. Even the update, even the Super Space Invaders that came out in 1991, I think it was. That's not bad. I don't like the fact they just try to tweak it a little bit, just moves it away from the original concept. But it's still Space Invaders at the bottom line. If you play something like Space Invaders Invasion Day on the PlayStation 2, do you know that one?
The one where they kind of went a little bit isometric with it, sort of 3D-ish isometric game. Yeah,
it's cheesy as anything. But it's still Space Invaders. It still feels a little bit like it.
It's one of those games that every gamer, I reckon even some of the modern gamers, the people that are literally just learning how to control joypads, at some point they'll cross because it'll get remade again. In fact, do you know when I said about, I said it earlier, I didn't want to say it, but when I was talking about a game in the arcade that was a big screen of a retro game, which you could win tickets out of, which they'd, adapted, that was the Space Invaders. So you'd have, a massive version of Space Invaders in front of young kids, and they would try and win tickets. As I say, it's just a game that comes across everybody. I mean, it was even on the very first colour mobile phones. I remember having a very old Nokia that had a colour screen, and you could buy it off the store for, I don't know, something like 79p or whatever, and have Space Invaders on your phone. The middle button was shoot, and the keypads around it were left, were left and right.
And like games of that era, like Pac-Man as well, it was cloned. People brought out their own versions of it. I've just grabbed off my shelf while we're talking. I've got the Space Invaders Anniversary Collection on PlayStation 2. It does say since 1978, so we've just slightly out
there we go.
One. But this does contain 9 different versions of the Space Invaders, all new 3D mode and versus mode. There's all sorts of different games on here. You can see going right back to the very, very beginning, and some sort of modern variations on it as well. And this compilation came out in the 2000s at some point. My eyesight is terrible. I can't read the back of that. But
I've actually got that as well, by the way.
Oh, have you? You got that as well?
Yeah, it's out of arm's reach, unfortunately. But I have actually got that exact PS2 compilation.
But then again, actually bringing that out in 2000, even if you say 2005 when it came out, I can't read the exact date off it, but that's nearly 30 years after the original.
Yeah. And longevity, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was still bringing it out. And there is, I know, because I've seen somebody play this recently. There was an updated arcade version of it, like a limited play. I know it's one of those things that tied into tickets, but I saw somebody actually playing it, sitting down and playing Space Invaders, which has been updated again. Here we are 40 odd years later, and they're still bringing out a variation on it.
So we talk about games getting remade and rebooted and all that. It's got to be the most remade and rebooted game ever, isn't it? If it's still going to this day and had many iterations, had even attempted different styles. I know Pac-Man went 3D isometric thingy as well, didn't it? But
yes,
it's timeless. It just goes to show that sometimes the simple games are the best ones.
Well, we always say they might not look like much, but it's how it plays that counts.
And and again, it's that one more go.
Yeah,
there's not many games that really have that one more go factor. And I was going to say, I'd clear 2 waves, and then I'd get onto the 3rd wave with 5 lives, and thinking I'm going to go far, and then then absolutely screw it up and think no, I can do better than that, and I'll have another go. Yeah. Everyone had their tactics as well. Some people like to clear the bottom row so that when it dropped, obviously it wasn't really dropping. But I had the tactic which some people use, where I used to try and clear the side so that it couldn't shift across and drop down, which was the approach I always used to take as well.
I always used to go, start from the far row and just work my way across, take one row out, then move on to the next row, then move on to the next row.
Yeah.
But I remember playing on the 2600. If you could change the difficulty levels, they're like different versions of it built in. It's still the same game, but they do a little tweak. And there was one where the screen was completely black. And the only way you could see anything was when you pressed fire, and everything on the screen would appear, then disappear after 2 seconds again. It was the strangest. You got no idea where anything was. You were just firing stuff into complete hit and hope. There was one of the switches made your sort of space, your tank, increase in size, so it's like longer and flatter, just to make it more difficult, because it was more difficult to avoid the aliens firing at you. I mean, it's one of the most revived games, and possibly one of the most cloned games of all time. And I'm sure it comes up in concept. People talk about old games. Oh, have you played Space? You remember Space Invaders? And people go, oh yeah, I remember that.
It's generational, isn't it? It's a game that generations can associate to and all talk about, So, but I mean, you got to be honest. Let's be honest. It inspired lots of other games, didn't it? Obviously Namco caught hold of it and made Galaga, and tell me that wasn't inspired by Space Invaders, and I'll call you a liar. You weren't first, but they made it into a different. It worked differently, didn't it, with the fact that things moved in different manners and like that. So yes, it's a different game, but it's got that concept, isn't it?
Yeah, and that Space Invaders Invasion Day is just worth buying for the introduction alone. It's hilarious.
All right. I don't actually. I'm looking out for it because it's one of those bad games that I have to try. Yeah. But I've seen plenty of footage of it, so I know what it looks like. But
I mean, it
looks
okay.
stupid,
But that introduction is just 3 minutes of pure cheese. It really is. You just need to, even if it's like £2-3, you just buy it for that. If you never play it, just watch that. Honestly, it made me laugh. I don't think that was the idea, but I tell you what, it made me want to do. It actually made me want to play it. I thought, actually, I want to play this now, and I played it. I thought, it's all right. It's not Space Invaders as I remember it, but fair enough.
It works for the same concept, but yeah.
It was tarted up beyond recognition. Really, didn't need to be done. Okay, so Space Invaders. I mean, absolute bona fide classic. And again, if you've never played Space Invaders, first of all, what are you doing? And secondly, go and play it, because you have to. It's almost like being admitted to a club. You can't come in unless you played Space Invaders. You can't come in unless you play Pac-Man. Even if you may think they're rubbish or terrible or whatever, you've still got to be able to experience it and play it. I don't care what anybody says. Right, let's move on to your next game then, because we jump forward a little bit on this one.
Yes, we jump forward over easily. Over 10 years. 1989, this one came out. I know this for a fact. This one, but I was going through my genres, and one genre that I had to have covered. I had to have a game of this genre, and that is the side-scrolling beat 'em up. And a lot of people are probably screaming because I've said 1989 already. What it is, and I went for the Turtles arcade game. And this was a tough choice over all of the side-scrolling beat 'em ups, sort of from that time period and a little bit further on, because you had the Simpsons game, which came out the year after, which was 1990. You had the X-Men one, which was around about the same time period. I think it was a bit later. Yeah. Wasn't a big fan of that one. That one felt too much like a coin muncher for me. You had Final Fight, obviously. Then you had a lot which kind of suffered because these ones were so big. Knights of the Round is another Capcom one that's a personal favourite of mine. I really enjoy that.
I've always wanted to play that. I've never played it.
Oh, mate, you need to. You need to. Yeah. Have you got a PSP? Because there's a Capcom collection that has it on there.
I don't have a PSP. I'm one of the few I don't have. But I've seen it and I thought.
You got a PS4?
I've got a PS4, yes.
Yeah, there's a fighting bundle. I forget the exact name. I think it's Capcom Fighting Bundle or something. 7 beat 'em ups on there. One of them's Knights of the Round.
Oh, I should have looked at it. Yeah. Just before you came, when we talked at the start about games being left in the arcade that never got converted.
Yeah.
Why did that one never get converted?
What, Knights of the Round?
Yeah.
At the time, yeah. But I thought you were going to say Aliens vs Predator, which was was even bigger sin if you ask me.
No, I wasn't going to say that one.
I was going to say I thought you was, but yeah. I know Pete will agree with me on that one. Pete Fighter, because he loves that, adores that. Rightfully so. It's just an absolutely amazing game. But the reason why I picked Turtles, and again, this is to do with being on a desert island and it being your only choice. Now, I know there's a video on YouTube that exists. I have watched it. it is actually possible to one credit clear that game. It has been done. There's a video of a guy doing it at an arcade in America called the Galloping Ghost, which is, I believe, the biggest one in the world. And he one credit clears it. He uses a lot of tricks, don't get me wrong, and exploits the game where it can be exploited and things like that. But it is possible to do it on one credit. You have to be Donny, and you have to do a lot of specific things. And I just thought to myself, it is probably the most nostalgic to me because I was a massive Turtles fan as a kid anyway. And then throw in the fact that this game technically can be done one credit. Simpsons can't, if you ask me. It's got more of a chance than X-Men can. Final Fight, I don't. You know what I mean? With that knowledge and how much nostalgia I have for that game, I would like to think being on a desert island that long, and because one player, all the enemies appear in the same place, all the pizza boxes are in the same place, the enemies have the same patterns, or you have tricks. There's a trick you can do with Bebop, there's a trick you can do with Krang, and there's a trick you can do with Shredder to actually make them a lot easier. And I've learned those because there was an achievement for the Xbox Live Arcade game, and I needed to use those to get that done. But I would like to basically be able to work on that while I have, at the same time, one of my most favourite side-scrolling beat-em-ups of all time. And by the way, one of the tricks that you can do, I think it works in the arcade as well. People know the third level after you've beaten Bebop and jumped down the sewer. There's a raised platform at the back, and there's a dropped-down water bit, and you can walk on either one. But if you walk on the top raised platform bit and move your turtle right down to the very edge of the platform, just so he's not falling off of it, if you get on the right line, the AI can't hit you, so you can actually just walk through the level. Yes, you have to avoid the drop-down gates, and you might have to go up, grab the pizza, get the energy you lost against Bebop, and come back down again. But you can actually walk along one line of that level and not get hit, but still hit the AI. And that's one of the tricks that can help you get through the game on one credit.
I'm always amazed where people find these tricks and hints and tactics out from.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it works on the Xbox Live Arcade port. Because I've done it.
But someone's going to play that game in great depth to try and work out how these things can be achieved.
I mean, to get through in one credit, what the guy was doing, he was basically edging along the screen very slowly so that he was bringing out the minimum enemies at a time. Because if you just go charging along, you can bring out, say, 4 at once. But if you slightly just move across, edge across slowly, you can bring a couple out and then you can deal with them. Move across again and bring the other 2 out and things like that. And it's also learning like where the mouse has come out of the wall and things like that. And you can, I was going to say, you can learn it. And I've seen it done. It's still bloody difficult to do, but it can be done. And I just think, well, if I was stuck on a desert island for God knows how long, then that could be one of the things that I can do around one of my most nostalgic side-scrolling beat-em-ups, which I love, and I still do have a game of to this day, because it might have got delisted from the Xbox Live Arcade store, but I bought it. It's still on that hard drive, and I've still got it. So
to make sure you preserve that, because
I will, because the Simpsons game The Simpsons game was only on there for a matter of about 3 months, and I bought it when it came out, and that's still on the hard drive as well. I know you can emulate it, but I actually got the Xbox Live Arcade versions, so very happy about
that. What was a big attraction about this game? Just briefly, to have it on this list here. I mean, obviously, I know it was very. When you walked in an arcade, we mentioned earlier, you could hear it. I'm not being the biggest Turtles fan, although I did enjoy playing it. It never it doesn't resonate with me. It interests me as much as it sits with you. So what's the big attraction for you?
Well, if we go back to at the time and not knowing what I know now, obviously, because that's had a large influence on my choice here. But yeah, it was literally just being a massive Turtles fan. I mean, it looked amazing for the time, didn't it? The Turtles all looked, like the Turtles. And it was just that, wasn't it? It's, again, the best, the simple games are the best ones. And it was side-scrolling, beat 'em up, 2 buttons, jump, punch, beat up the enemies, move on, linear, one end to the other. There's a boss at the end, you beat the boss. I'm just going to say, I just love that. I've always loved the side-scrolling beat 'em up. And the fact you could have, it was a 4-player cabinet, I don't know if it was the first one, but it was certainly one of the very first ones I saw. It was colourful, wasn't it? Each section of the turtle, that quadrant was in the colour of the turtle's headband. And again, there's another one, you're standing there and, someone would come up alongside you. Oh, can I join your game, mate? This is, again, arcade. What I love about it, there's so much social aspect about it as well. It's not a headset on, hoping a mate you already know is online. Complete random stranger can walk up and say, can I join your game, mate? Stick their 30p in and they jump on another turtle next to you and join in. I mean, you're also playing along at a time and you're thinking, oh, shit, I'm down to my last life here. And you're looking around hoping someone's going to come over and sort of join in and help your game last a little bit longer. But no, you say, love the turtles, the sights, the sound, that they nailed the music on it as well. The level music, the noises, even
speech.
The speech, the voice acting for what little there is, isn't it? Say your prayers, turtles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then off he'd try and shoot you.
I only remember who turned out the lights, because that used to happen an awful lot to me.
Oh, you must remember the help me that April screeched at the beginning, but
no,
falling down that manhole. It was funny to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got a bit annoying every time I kept doing it, but that's my gameplay.
The placement of the one in the Bebop boss fight wasn't fun because it was in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So if you're moving around trying to get away from him, and then you fall in it, and then it'd throw you up, and you're standing there, and you're thinking, not there, not now.
But again, we mentioned with Space Mate, it's like an iconic game. A lot of people from that era remember that. It's a 4-player one. It's a giant cabinet, 4-player cabinet. The colours not on the screen, the colour of the cabinet itself, just completely eye-catching. And it was always tend to be at the front of the arcade, didn't it? If you remember.
Oh yeah, it was a focal point, wasn't it? If they had that was it. It pulled people in because the marquee was bright blue as well. It really used to stand out.
Yeah, I played it at the National Video Game Arcade when it was in Nottingham, probably about 3 years ago. I think it was 4 years ago, and it just brought back so many memories. As soon as I saw it, I thought because I was with Mrs. Bear, and it was again. We mentioned right at the front. It was the first thing that was there. You walked in, and on the left-hand side, it was there. So it was the first thing that you came across. I thought, I've got to play this before we go anywhere and just have a quick go at it again. I'm still terrible at it, but it just brought back so many memories. Yeah, good choice, that one. I like that. Okay, we'll come back to your arcade games on your list in a minute. Let's go back to your gaming history. We left it with the Mega Drive.
We left it with the Mega Drive, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said,
go on.
Yeah, like I said, I always hung on to them for a while. I hung on to my Mega Drive for a long while. At secondary school, they used to take the mick out of me. What have you got? Well, I've got a Mega Drive, and everyone would go, "Yeah, we got PlayStation 1s. They're much better." And I'd go, "Yeah, I know, but I ain't finished with this yet, and I'm still, happy with what I'm playing." And the people were just absolutely confused, as to why I was still happy. I was going to say, I'm loving what I'm playing, but no, the time did come, and obviously it was that era of gaming with the PS1 and the Saturn, and the PS1 was the one, and I bought it so late into its life cycle again that it came with Tekken 2. And again, it was actually, I was largely influenced when I very first saw the PlayStation 1 by a non-arcade game. But again, it was the arcade influence and the arcade growing up and the love for the arcade that made me want a PlayStation 1. Because here I could buy it with Tekken 2. It came with 4 games, because it was so late in its lifespan. It came with 4 games for a hell of a deal. Tekken 2 was one of them. First Crash Bandicoot, Porsche Challenge, and Adidas Power Soccer 97, which I think is the second one of those games they made. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Tekken 2 was the one that literally I went home and put in the system straight away. But yeah, it was the arcade games again. Ridge Racer, bought very early on. Man, when Tekken 3 came out, that pushed that system to the limits. I think that's still the best Tekken to this day, if you ask me. But yeah, Destruction Derby, by the way, was that very first PlayStation game that caught my eye and made me want to buy a PlayStation, because this is going back to monsters smashing up buildings. Again, I clearly had a love for destruction as a kid, and these cars just driving around. It was playing a demo in the upstairs floor of a Virgin Megastore of Destruction Derby in the Bowl had me sold, and I was just like, I need this at some point in my life. So yeah, Mega Drive games were on the table, like I said earlier, $5 at a time. A few of those got sold, saved up. First console I bought my own money, saved up for a very long time for it as well. I And when I said I've got enough money, can we go down to Comet? And my parents, again, they've been very supportive of my love for gaming. They when I said I had the money for it, can we go and get one? It's literally that same night. It was like, oh yeah, it's still open. It was late. It was dark, but obviously it was when dark was coming in quite early. And it's like, yeah, it's still open for another hour. We'll go out and we'll go out and get you one. You know, we'll spend your money. And yeah, I went into the store, saw the deal, and yeah, snaps it up. Sold by Tekken. Again, Crash Bandicoot was another game that I had seen, obviously, before I bought it, and thought this platform and this 3D platform, and you know, sideways, upwards, and running towards the screen. This is next level. This is the future. You know, sort of thing. This is amazing, and just so many games that just won me over.
It's interesting you bought it from Comet, because I got mine from Comet as well. In fact, not the first time Comet has cropped up in these conversations where people got things from, but that's where mine came from, and that was one of the first things I bought after I started working full time. Went out and bought one because a friend of mine had got one.
Did it come with Spice World?
No, I did buy that. I did buy that afterwards. It's another story for another time, but yeah, I mean, it was. When I saw my friends, I thought, oh wow, this is a bit good.
There was always a game that came along that was a banger, and you had to have it. Like know, when the first SmackDown came out, I was just like this. No, I had Warzone, and I thought I liked it. I thought it was all right. But the finishing moves were an absolute nightmare to pull off, and I could only do Mankind's Mandible Claw, so I was only ever him, you know. And then SmackDown came out, and I was like, well, this is what Warzone should have been, you know. And played that forever, and then SmackDown 2 came out, and I'm just like, oh my god, they've polished this, added more matches, more characters, and yeah, this is amazing. I said, there's always that game.
Yeah, I remember I got SmackDown. I think the day it came out. And that was that I traded my Mega Drive in to get SmackDown. Come in, trade my Mega Drive in for 50 quid, and I could buy SmackDown and something else. That was just absolutely ludicrous. It really was. But for me, it's games like Medal of Honor. The first Medal of Honor game, first person shooter, was great. Ridge Racer you mentioned, Formula One, the variations.
Yes,
I know they came.
The very first Formula One was something else, wasn't it? I'd never known a Formula One game like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had that on launch as well. That's another game that suckered me in.
Yeah, the ISS games.
ISS Pro 9. Yeah, how can I forget that? Oh my god!
We did a series of videos about that.
I lost, I think, a year of my life to that game because I loved it so much.
Me too.
I could win the league on level 5. I can't now. Can't even get to half time, without letting in 3 goals. But back in the day, I could win that league without losing a game. I'd still draw a couple, but best football game ever.
Yeah, and then you got Alien Trilogy as well. That was one of the first games I'd really enjoyed. That just so many great games for it.
But Tekken 3 was the one. Of all games I've ever seen the PlayStation, well, before it came out, and I saw it was coming out on the PlayStation, I'm thinking the loading times on that are going to be a week. How the hell is a PlayStation 1 going to be able to cope with Tekken 3? And don't get me wrong, it's got loading screens, but they ain't that long for what it is. And the game is beautiful. I was going to say, I honestly, even to this day, I am absolutely amazed at how smoothly the PlayStation 1 deals with and can play Tekken 3. It's the pinnacle of the franchise for me. Tekken 7 can do one. It's just, it's nothing now. It really is. But, I mean, you had a side-scroller and beat 'em up in that as well. You had Tekken Force mode, I think it was called.
Oh yeah.
And then you had Tekken Ball as well, where you'd be on a volleyball court and you'd have to punch the ball over the net and it hit the floor. The other person would get floored and lose some energy. Oh. Honestly, it's just an amazing game that I still, keep repeating because I can't believe it. I can't believe it can handle it. Really can't.
Yeah, it's. It's like the Mega Drive. It's an iconic system. It's the next, a couple of generations on from the Mega Drive, but it is just that image of mid to late 90s computer gaming technology. You could show somebody a photograph of that, and I'm pretty sure 7 out of 10 people will be able to tell you exactly what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely dominated, didn't it? Absolutely dominated.
And it birthed the genre, a brand. Don't forget, at this point, Sony had very, very, very rarely dipped their toes into anything to do with gaming. And when they were rumoured to be doing this, people are going, well, what's the point? You got no chance. We've seen Philips bring out the CDI, that had flopped. We've seen Panasonic with 3DO, that had flopped. Sony coming in, big electronics giant that they are, more probably known for making video recorders and TVs and hi-fis at the time. And they're bringing out a gaming console, and everyone's got no chance whatsoever. But honestly, where are we now? Nearly 25, just over nearly 25 years on for the first 30 years on for the first PlayStation, and it's still going.
Still a powerhouse. It's a beast. Love it.
It is a great little system. And about 5-10 years ago, you could got them for absolutely next to nothing. But they seem to
they've gone up again now.
They've gone up again. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time where you could walk into anywhere and people would try to give you them for a tenner. Like, give me a tenner, you can have. Now now CX give you like 20 something quid trade for one. And they were selling them for 25 only a couple of years ago.
But that's right. You could go to a car boot and you could get people trying to give them away.
Oh, you'd always find one. Find one.
I mean, I've got about 5. I don't know how I've ended up with 5, but I have got 5. I thought I'd only got a couple. I got one. I got one boxed. I got one in a sort of a hold all, and I got a couple of loose ones knocking around. I don't know why, and they're all the grey ones, but I can't stand the cut down version, the PS one as they called it. Horrible looking thing. Give me the original one with the giant battery pack built into it.
My biggest regret was actually that was one of the consoles I sold to get my next one, because I loved it so much. I put like a dust sheet over it when I finished playing with it and everything. I put everything away properly. I proper looked after it as well, and then I didn't use it for X amount of years. And my mate wanted to play a game that I'm not particularly into. You got a Metal Gear Solid game on the PS2, but for some reason he wanted to play the first one on the PS1. So he asked, he said, have you got one? I said, yeah. He said, are you selling it? And I went, yeah, no worries. He said, he goes, what do you want for it? And I said, just give us 20 quid. And he took it. Literally, this thing ran like a dream because I'd looked after it so much.
Yeah.
Couple of controllers. I kept the games. I'd sold a lot of the only games that I've got that are mine from the original, again, because I love my fighting games so much, is my original copies of Tekken's 1, 2, and 3. I've still kept those. But everything else on the shelf has been bought since, because I bought a PS3 that's the fully back. Not that it matters because they all play PS1 games, but I bought the fully back compact version a couple of years back, so that I've got that library available to me again.
Yeah, I mean, my original PS1 with all its games was stolen, and then by that time, which was probably in the start of 2003, the only PlayStation you can get was the tiny little PS1. I remember being so disappointed when they replaced it with that. I was like, oh, God,
I didn't like those.
No. And to be honest, I got absolutely no idea what happened to that PS1. I got absolutely no idea.
Those PS1s, I always think that like a large ornamental stone you'd buy for your garden.
Yes,
I honestly think they do. I hate the look of them.
Giant aspirin or something. They just look absolutely terrible.
I hate the look of them. I like that grey box, the original one.
I can never remember what happened to that. I really can't. The games I got with it, I just can't remember where it went to. I must have sold it. It's one thing I can't actually pinpoint in my gaming history what happened to it. One was stolen, the one that was replaced it. I can't remember what happened to it. I really can't.
Yeah.
Very strange. Very strange. But great system, great controller as well, and the DualShock as well. Yeah.
Yeah. My ISS Pro 98 is actually my original one as well. Didn't get rid of that because that is mint and it's still at the demo disc in it as well.
And you were collecting platinums as well for it, weren't you? Because if people aren't aware that amongst your collecting traits was collecting PlayStation 1 platinums for a time.
I mean, I haven't bought any for a while, but I've still got all of the ones I've bought. As I say, people hate them, a lot of them. And I can understand if you buy a platinum and you're collecting black labels and then you've got a row full of black labels and you've got an odd silver one here and an odd silver one there. They look unsightly. But what I did is specifically collect platinums but separated them. And I hate the look of the PS2 Platinums, I've got to be honest with you, spine out. But the PS1 Platinums, I think, look beautiful. I really do. And I've got them all bunched up next to each other in a row, alphabetical order, of course. And I think they look amazing. And then I've got my little black label section below it. So, yeah, separate the pair of them. But I haven't bought one for a very long time. But I haven't got rid of them as well.
No, well, you say you were after them quite heavily last year and the year before, I think. So last year mostly, I think it was.
I mean, I'm focusing on the 360 collection, but we'll go back. We will go back. But I really want to put my focus on that because that's what I'm going to certainly play a hell of a lot more of.
I don't mind the Platinums on the PS1. I can't stand the PlayStation 2 ones like you. I can't stand them. But the PlayStation 1 Platinums, I don't mind, but I can't do what you do and pull them out of the alphabetical order. They've got to sit in the alphabetical order as part of the PlayStation collection rather than pose the black label and the silver label.
They're two separate collections, aren't they? Platinums, black labels. See, the Platinums are a great thing to collect if you ask me, because certainly if you're just starting out, because they're going to be a little bit cheaper and they're going to be the big hitters. They're going to be, well, when I say big hitters, I mean big games, not expensive games. Sorry, let's get that right. They're going to be the big popular selling games. So therefore, with a couple of exceptions which you question, good franchises. Shall I mention 007 Racing again? Yes.
Yes, just do.
But with the odd exception, you're generally buying a stellar title as well. And the Platinum version is always cheaper. Like Silent Hill is still going to be expensive on Platinum, but it's still going to be a little bit cheaper than its black label counterpart.
Very good point. Yeah, it depends what you want. You can, if you want to collect you don't mind the Platinum Mini collection, you'll pick it up. And if it's one of the more rare ones, then yes, you would do without any hesitation whatsoever. But
there's the odd couple that are a bit more expensive than their black counterparts, but it's only a couple.
Only a couple. Yeah.
Only a couple. One Digimon game and something else.
Right then, so PlayStation 1 obviously was very, very popular with yourself. Your next console after that, I know you love this one.
Oh, I adore this one. And again, it's hugely arcade influenced, and probably the console that has some of the best arcade ports of the games that it had, and that is the Dreamcast. Straight onto the Dreamcast after PlayStation 1. And I loved it so much, I literally burnt my original Dreamcast out. I had to buy a new one a couple of years ago.
I think a lot of people did, didn't they? Was that because of the fan?
Well, it is noisy, but I did play it for a lot and a long. See, I only ever had a collection of about 10 games for it, and I was always happy with that because of the games I had. I was going to say it's just the arcade ports on it are just absolute belters. Very polished, best versions of the ports.
There are some very good versions on there. Yeah, the
best Soul Calibur game ever on a home console for me was the Soul Calibur that was on the Dreamcast. It's absolutely beautiful.
Virtua Tennis is brilliant on that as well. There's a Sega Rally as well. Is it called Sega Rally 2 on the Dreamcast? I think it is.
I'm not entirely sure, but I have got it. Power Stone. That's not even an arcade game, but Power Stone is an absolute belter of an arena fighter. Absolute belter of a game.
I've got that somewhere, and the more obscure title like strange title like Space Channel 5 and Jet Set Radio. I
was never really into those two games. I've got to be honest with you. Those two didn't really appeal to me. But it has got the best fishing game ever, the only one worth playing. And you know what it is.
Well, yes, so the connoisseur of fishing games, certainly. There's one I haven't got as well. But
you need it then. Sega Bass Fishing, mate.
But Brilliant. It comes with the peripheral, doesn't it? The fishing rod peripheral.
It does. You can play without it. I think you just have to, rotate the thumbstick.
Why would you want to play with that? You'd want to have the experience of proper fishing, wouldn't you? You'd want to.
I know. I haven't got it, and it still serves its purpose. But talking of arcade cabinets, that Sega Bass Fishing arcade cabinet was something else. It was huge. The one with the actual line, and it pulled it to the sides.
That's right.
And obviously pulled harder and softer depending on whether the fish was giving you some or not. That's
Yeah, I know exactly.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So what? I mean, obviously the arcade influence is a big thing here. What other attractions of this system did you have that made you want to move on from PlayStation 1 to pick that up? Was it the arcade?
It literally is. Yeah. It literally is. There is nothing else. Honestly, Don't get me wrong, there are great non-arcade games to it, but that was the draw for me. I mean, yes, it had four ports on the front, and the VMU. That was a cool little concept as well. I thought that was quite quirky.
I wasn't quite sold on that one.
I don't know. I thought it was quite cool. If you're playing a football game, when you score a goal, you look down and it'll flash up with the score and the little VMU as well. I don't know. It's just maybe a little bit gimmicky with things like that, but no. Honestly, the Dreamcast and its arcade ports is what totally sold me. Some of these games had to have them.
It was one of those systems that when I first started building a collection, it was one of the very top of it, and I was looking to get one cheap enough. I've got quite a few now. I've got a boxed one. I've got about 3 or 4 loose ones. I just acquired loads of gamepads. I don't know. It sort of sits in the middle for me. I mean, I like it, but it doesn't keep drawing me back to play it. I'm not quite sure why.
That's what I literally just had 10 games on the shelf, and that was all I ever needed. And this console served me long into the lifespan again of the next one I bought. In fact, I went without a console for a while because after that died, I didn't quite know what to do. But we'll get to that little story in a bit. That's an interesting story as to where I've led on to because of not knowing what to get next for a while.
Yeah, it's I like it, but I just don't. I'm crazy about it. If that makes any sense at all?
No, I was just going to say that's fine. Each to their own,
Yeah,
but
that's it. Well, I'm a stranger.
It's an absolute powerhouse for me.
You buy it from new as well?
No, used.
No,
used one. That's probably another reason why it didn't last forever. Like I'd hope it would have done. No, I actually bought it again. I think it was the same cash converter I got a Mega Drive from. That store is still going to this day as well. But with it was really cheap because it was without a game as well. And then I went straight off to what is now Game, but was Electronics Boutique in my local town centre, and left that with a particular game as well, which is going to get mentioned very shortly.
Yep, we have to sort of skirt around there because we don't want to mention any games that are upcoming, aren't we?
Shall we segue into that? Should we segue into that one? I know we agreed an order, but I think we should just segue into. In fact, you know what? The one that was going to be last, leave it last because the next two I think are very well linked to the Dreamcast, and I think are great choices to say now.
Yeah, I agree. Considering where we are in that, and jumping back onto your 6 games, so there's an Island list. So yeah, we're in the right place to talk about those. So.
Yeah, well, we'll go for that game that I went to EB and bought because I absolutely adored this in the arcade, and it's the sports title that I'm going to take, and it's got to be a football game. Trust me, I did again. Virtual Tennis does get an honourable mention here, but I just don't think it would have the interest or to keep me coming back for a lot longer. It was all I was restricted to sports wise. But anyway, it is the game I always say I have an unhealthy obsession for. And that is Virtua Striker 2. And the version I'm actually picking isn't the Dreamcast version, because the Dreamcast version was 2000.1. The version I'm picking is version 98, which is the second version of Virtua Striker 2, because Virtua Striker 2 came out in 97, and then there was a 98 version, which I think it was just a tiny bit more polished and had more teams to kind of tie up with the World Cup that year. It was miles better than the first one. I played the first Virtua Striker, which came out, I think, in 95. But that was a bit ropey. It was a bit blocky. It didn't really, the camera angles on it weren't well. People argue about the camera angles now, but they're absolutely dire on the first one. But with Virtua Striker 2, it's just, again, I've always preferred my sports games to be arcadey. It's massively arcadey.
Yes.
Especially with the football stuff. I can't stand the latest ones we're getting now, but it's so simulated, it just bores me. You know, Virtua Striker 2 is you can just score the ridiculous goals, and you get today's best goal, and you get that rainbow with the stripe behind your ball. You know, today's best goal and things like that. The reason why for me is, again, it's so replayable as a football game is because, and I'll say this, you know, for as good as I may think I've got, or for as good as anybody else thinks they have got, you're still not guaranteed to win every game. You still have to work for it. You'll still get done over. You'll still scream at the screen, you know, oh, that's a load of crap. That should never have happened. What's the keeper doing? And
Yeah.
you go again, but the players turn like tanks, and it's literally end to end because you can't keep hold of possession. But that's the one thing I like about it. If you're playing, I don't know what we're on, FIFA 21, and you're winning the game 1-0, you can play it around at the bank and just be annoying. You cannot do this in Virtua Striker.
You're right.
You literally, you've got 2 seconds and you've got to get a pass off or make the ball forward because you're going to get tackled. And it's just literally non-stop to the end. And the way the crosses go in, as I say, the goals you could score are ridiculous. Just love it.
Friend of mine used to play the arcade version all the time. We mentioned about walking in an arcade. He'd go and try and find that. And then you sort of turn around, where's he gone to? And you'd sort of walk around, and there he was playing Virtua Striker.
I did the same.
I played it in the arcade as well. And I've played it on the Dreamcast as well. And it is a bonkers game. It really is. But
some of the stuff you can do in it, I mean,
it is entertaining. You just can't, as you said, you question some of the decisions. You get angry with it. I'll just have another go at it and just avenge my defeat, as it would be.
It's just some of the games you end up having as well are just ridiculous. And I don't mean to plug one of my own videos, but there's a video where I play as
plug away. It's your Desert Island, mate.
The video where I play as the Spacemen team and do a playthrough of that. Why is the name evading me right now? I have the most unbelievable, ridiculous final ever. Honestly, I even I try not to swear in my pre-recorded videos. I know I'm no good on live streams, but and even that, I was like, I'm going to swear it, but I got it back to 2-2 or to level scoring, whatever it was, with seconds to go, and they scored, and I went, I don't fucking believe it. And I've shouted out at the top of my voice as well. And I'm thinking, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to upload this because I'm going to lose. I want to put a complete playthrough through. And before I know it, I'd done me kickoff routine and booted it in from about 35 yards and screamed, and then ended up winning the game with golden goal before it got to penalties. And it's the most. I just think games like this happen so often. And they only happen in arcade games, and Virtua Striker 2 just seemed to nail it. I mean, go on. I was just going to say that the series went on to 3 and 4, but it never captured it like it did in Virtua Striker 2. That specific engine that game had, and the gameplay that game had, it just had it for me.
Yeah, as gamers, this is what you experience, don't you? You experience the immense frustration and the crushing disappointment, but you're only seconds away from a moment of euphoria, as you were there, and that's why we play them. Especially sports games, when you're dealing with goals or runs or whatever. Just getting that late winner or that last push over the line just to sort of send you over the edge, and you do get excited about it, and it frustrates you at the same time when something happens at the last minute. You go, oh, flipping heck, I'll go play that again and go back and do it. And that's what it draws you back in. You keep doing it.
When it's competitive and it's close, and even though you more often win than lose, so many of them are still close. And that's what really, I was going to say, it always got me back in. And we used to have this local arcade to me that's, while I was going to college, which was a Sega Park, had Virtua Striker version 98, which is why I picked it specifically because I spent a lot of time on it. And I was going to say, there used to be a sort of a core group of people that we used to see regularly playing that machine, and we all knew what our initials were on the leaderboard, and we'd actually end up competing at this game to try and have the best goal difference as well. And I also always used to pick the teams with a 4-3-3 formation, which were either Denmark or Colombia.
Right.
So I always pick those. But in 2000.1, I picked the Netherlands because they've got a 3-4-3. They've got little kickoff strategies and everything, honestly.
And you mentioned you did videos on it on your channel as well, which they were good to watch. I enjoy watching those. It's just a great game. It really is.
It's just arcade fun. It's not serious, It's a 3-button game. It's not difficult to learn either. That's another beautiful. I keep saying it. The simple games are the best, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't need shoulder buttons to run quickly and then do this button to swivel this, and no. That's not how
Right.
it was.
I'm sorry, I've been looking for the video while I've been talking to you. The video that I'd love people to watch, and just skip. Don't watch the whole half an hour. Skip through to the final. Watch the final. It's a playthrough by Hidden Team MVP Royal Genki, which is a team of space aliens.
Yes.
I've also done a video on how to access these teams if you've got 2000.1 and would like to play as a team of aliens or a team of snowmen with some Eskimos in it as well.
I will make sure when I link the channel description, I'll put that video as the one to link to.
All right, I'll find it for you and send it on to you so you don't have to look too hard.
Yeah, that's great because I try and link to a video people have done recently, but as you've talked about that one, and I think it is a good video.
It is an unbelievable final. I've never had a better game ever, I think.
And I think because of the passion you got for it, we'll stick that one in there. So if you want to go and watch that video, it will be linked below. But yeah, and again, but that Virtua Striker Dreamcast is quite readily available, isn't it? It's not a difficult game to find.
It's not expensive either. No, it's only like a $5 boxed.
So if you haven't got that as well, it's just worth it for for that. It's just great fun. It's great fun. Okay, so that's game number 3. Has been this right sort of ballpark. Another game I know you are very, very passionate about.
Again, I was going to say I forgot we've gone way past one as well, haven't we? But another Dreamcast, very much associated game, which I could say because I've just battered on about the Dreamcast and not mentioned it specifically. I was like, I'm talking about my 10 games here, and I can't say these two because I haven't spoke about them yet. But the other one is the absolutely amazing Crazy Taxi, because I said I've got to have a driving game. My initial thought was obviously you think you've got to have a racing game, but no, I went, no, you've got to have a driving game. And there is no driving game, to me, people can disagree if they really want, there's no driving game with more replayability, in my opinion, than Crazy Taxi. It's not a racing game, it's not got a fixed track, but it is, again, it's the replayability factor, isn't it? I can get further, I can do more money, and that opening where you drive down the sort of 2-dip hill, as I call it, and the tips are flying at you. You get crazy jump, crazy through, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously normally the first stop is the one at the very end of the hill. Again, it's just another one with music, the original soundtrack music, which you'll get in the arcades, obviously, and the Dreamcast port. It adds to it as well. Just everything about the game is just pure arcade driving fun. And I think for a driving game, arcade game, it has to be Crazy Taxi for me.
Yeah, because everyone talks about the music in that game. Who was some of the artists on that originally?
Offspring and Bad Religion were the 2 artists from the arcade.
Just 2 artists, was it? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone associates the yeah, don't they? That you get in Crazy Taxi with the game. You hear that. I think that's an Offspring song. I might get shot down if I'm wrong here. But yeah, you hear that that song, and you'll perk up and you go, "Oh, there's a Crazy Taxi cab behind me or something," But yeah, everything about that game is just it's pure arcade fun. It really is. I was gonna say. You can go on with the honourable mentions and track races, but I just thought with a track racer, there's only so much you can do with it, and only so much better you can get. But technically, Crazy Taxi again can be endless, because as long as you pick up another passenger and drop them off, you're going to go again. Even though the timer is obviously fixed in a way to make sure you're not keeping going forever, but technically it can go forever.
I'm getting it. It's not a game I've played massively in the past. And to be honest, I much prefer the Simpsons spin-off because it's got the Simpsons in it. And is it Road Rage? Was it Road Rage? Yeah. Is
it Road Rage or Hit and Run? I always get them mixed up, but it's one of the two, isn't it?
I think it's Road Rage.
I think it is Road Rage.
But because you've got the Simpsons, I'd much prefer that. But it's the same game, basically. It's Crazy Taxi with the Simpsons.
Yeah, I think they got sued for it, didn't they?
I don't know.
I think they did. I think they got sued for copying.
Yeah. But I know why people talk about this. There have been so many. We talked about Space Invaders. So many clones of this game over the years as well. It's an iconic of that era. There's no doubt. We talked about games. Space Invaders being the 70s, Turtles being the late 80s. This is very much late 90s, early 2000s, and this is again an iconic machine. And given where the arcades were at the time, getting towards the end of its life, one of the sort of really big games in the last.
It's what I call one of those games
games, yeah.
that comes along and you describe. It's one of those games you then describe future games as it. You get games like that. Like I always say about my beloved Gears of War, when you get a cover-based shooter, people always say it's a cover-based shooter like Gears of War. You know, you get a style of, like you said with that Simpsons game, you said it's like Crazy Taxi. You know, it's one of those games that will always get related back to when you're trying to describe another game because it's so much like it. Yeah. It's that, you know.
The connection between the two. And of course, if you try to sell that concept to somebody at the time, it's a game based around being a taxi driver. Then you go, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
But what they did with it was just amplify everything, give it a larger than life feel to it. The big soundtrack, the characters, the characterization. It just was like, wow, this is just great. It's really, really good to play.
I was the ramps everywhere and getting all the little tips. As I say, when you're driving between destination, it's got that little extra thing of not just getting to the next destination, like I said, the crazy passes, you know, crazy jumps, because there's these very conveniently placed ramps just happen to be next to the road all over the place, you know, and you can go up those and get crazy jumps, crazy drifts, just things like that. And obviously you can do the crazy start, you know, or whatever it's called. I forget the proper name for it now, but you know, where if you stop, put it in reverse and then put it in forward and accelerate at the same time, you'll get a crazy boost, I think it's called, or something. Yeah. So you'll fly off as well. But that's what I mean. It keeps you interested with, you know, you can do that in between. It's not just drive to the next destination. You can build up your score by getting your punter to chuck loads of tips at you by doing lots of little things. It's just genius.
When people have chosen racing games for this, it's usually a truck racer, as you say, or a kart racer, because they're incredibly very popular. But with a track racer, you said he's probably going to get would you want to take something like Forza or Gran Turismo with you? Yeah, probably, because there's a lot of cars to drive. But it's going to get a bit dull. Kart racing is all well and good, but it tends to be better with more people. So this really, as a driving game, is probably about as good a choice as you can get.
Certainly for single player, it is a single player game. There is no two-player mode of it. But I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I love Daytona USA, and probably Daytona USA 2 is probably a bit more polished and better. But like I said, there's only so far as you can go on a track race before you can't improve your time.
Yeah,
you know, and it is the same track over and over again. In Crazy Taxi, like if you're stuck on a desert island and you know you're having a crazy taxi day, you could just I'll pick up that passenger and go off in a different route. You know, it's just amazing.
Be really impressive if you built a taxi out of all the driftwood that came across, and then stuck your console in there, and it'd be like actually doing the real thing.
That'd be a concept.
Yeah, that's an idea, isn't it? You know, yeah.
Something to do between playing games.
That's it. Well, keeps the mental health.
And try to survive.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I mean that is a great choice of game, and probably one which I haven't played enough of. I haven't got that. I haven't got the Dreamcast version. I think I've got the slightly inferior PlayStation 2 version.
Yeah, I think that's probably the worst one of it. It got ported to the Xbox Live Arcade as well. That's a really good port of it as well, but it hasn't got all of the music, only some of it because of licensing reasons and yada, yada, yada.
Bloody copyrights.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It really is. But yeah, I like that choice. That's a good one. That's a good one. Right, so before we get to the last two games on that list, and before we get to the two at the end, still got the last bit of gaming history to talk about. Now, this is what people are going to know you for from your channel. But as you said, there's an interesting story because how you got to this point is because of what happened to the Dreamcast, I'm guessing, for you, what you were saying. So
yeah, I was going to say, obviously, I know I didn't buy a new one, but it wasn't that old at the same time. But yeah, the Dreamcast went on for years and years and years. As I said, I had these 10 games. I loved them to bits. So, you know, arcade games, couldn't put them down. But yeah, that Dreamcast eventually did die. It burnt out. You put a game in and nothing. You know, you could. So, and I must admit, I was lost as into what to do next. And I was looking at consoles, and I even went without one for a couple of months, kind of things, without really knowing what to do. And I would go around a mate of mine's a lot. We'd go, go down a pub for a few beers, have a few drinks. We'd then go around to his, and he'd be like, "Oh, do you want to play some Pez?" I think it was Pez 08 at the time. That was the one that we were playing, and it was on his Xbox 360. And we'd have game after game after game, during the night. And then he'd say, he'd be eating his food and go, "Hey, you have a go on your own," or something like that happened. And he said, "Oh, why don't you create your own profile?" All right, then go on. Then I'll have my own profile on your Xbox. And I sat down and I started playing a game, and I won this game against the computer. And up popped this little thing at the bottom. It said, "Achievement unlocked, first glory 10G." And I said to my mate, I said, "What's that at the bottom?" He goes, "Oh, that's achievements. That's what you get with the Xbox." And I was like, "That's amazing. I want more." And I was literally there. I was like, "I want more of this." And that was it. I would go around and I was going to say, he goes, "Oh yeah, so I'll play on my own for a bit if you want." And I'd play his Xbox and pop achievements on it on my profile. And we played Borderlands 2, 2-player together, and the achievements all were unlocked on his profile because that's how that works. And I was absolutely hooked by this achievement system on top of gaming, and that was it. I wanted an Xbox. I wanted to start getting some achievements, and I got into that Pez as well. By the time I actually got my Xbox, because he was playing an old Pez, this was in 2010. So when I said, right, I want an Xbox, and got 360, Pez 10 was the one that was out, and I got Pez 10, and I played that to death, full 1000G out of it. Played the online stuff, which took some serious time because you had to get very good at the game. Win 75% of your last matches, which was basically win 15 out of 20 without, got that. Put loads of time into it. And I was just like, I'm not only enjoying my gaming, like I always have done, but I have this extra dimension that's added to it. It's making me do extra things. It's getting longevity out of these games, which it did back then. Less said about where it's gone now, the better. And I was just like, right, this is great. I've got 1000G out of this one. Let's get another game and let's start going, And I play through that, and I'd be like, right, let's carry on playing again. But yeah, the Xbox 360, the achievement system really suckered me in. And obviously they had the achievement system first, and then PlayStation did develop into trophy system. And both consoles have their diehard trophy hunters and achievement hunters. And it's become part of gaming. It's almost like you're either into it or you're not. There doesn't seem to be a happy middle ground with it. People aren't sort of like casual achievement hunters. It seems to be kind of hardcore or not.
Yeah, I mean,
tend to find
for me, it's not an appeal. I just want to play the game and go on with that. I'm not really bothered about the achievements. As you said, there's no middle ground with it. You either you are or you aren't.
The only middle ground I kind of agree to, you tend to get people that go through spells. They'll think, "Oh, this is great," and then after a year or so, or 6 months or so, they get bored of it. You do get that occasionally, but yeah.
But you do get people who, like yourself, do get into it.
Oh, absolutely hooked into it, yeah.
And they will completely go. I mean, you've gone recently past 800,000 gamer score.
Yeah, very, very recently, as a time of we are recording, yeah.
Yeah.
The leader in the world's over 2 million.
But your goal is to get to 1 million. And we asked you this on the live podcast we did, and we said, one of the questions that came in was, well, what are you going to do when you get past 1 million? And you went, keep going.
Just keep going. I was going to say, it doesn't end. The million is just one of those sort of grail targets that, we all like to get, the 7 figures,
Is there an actual end game in terms of an actual figure that somebody would get to one day when they completed all the gamer score across all the Xbox games?
No, because unless they stop making games. But the trouble is the 360 library is obviously a lot of the 360 games have online achievements, and a lot of the servers then get taken down, go offline. So if you go back to games, some of them you can't get. Yeah. I did that with that crap Rogue Warrior game recently. That's got online that I can't get. Got every online achievement out of it now. Since I last spoke to you personally, that's now done.
Yeah.
But that game is shit. So I don't. Yeah, that could actually, if we were doing consoles, that could have been the game that teased me. But that could have gone down there. But no, I was going to say the indie games, unfortunately, are just making gamer score or achievements throwaway now a little bit. They've really bastardized the system, as I call it, a little bit. Made it too easy. Which is why I've gone back to playing 360 and focusing on my 360 gamer score, because it's still an achievement on that system.
I do agree from what you said some of these games just seem to come out with the sole intention of just providing a quick 1,000
Yeah.
score for somebody, and that's the other side of it. Because if you're going to make a game to get an achievement that quickly, and there's nothing else beyond that,
it's just a cash grab.
Yeah, that's what doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was just about to say the fact that they're costing nothing as well in comparison. Like, you'd buy a £40 game back in the 360 games, and you'd have, you couldn't just go, oh, well, the achievements are crap on this, I'll buy another one straight away. Now you're getting $3.99 games which take 10 minutes, and it's ridiculous. I always say to people, there's like a couple of exceptions, like Avatar: The Legend of Aang and a couple of American backyard sports games that are quick, but an average quick completion on a 360 is like 6 to 8 hours for a quick one. And then after that, obviously they just go up and up and up. But it's just indie game after indie game. It takes half an hour less. And the funny thing about it is, I do love playing an indie game because I love uncovering a little gem, as I call it. That game you play, it used to be that game you play for Gamerscore, because Gamerscore wasn't too difficult, but it'd take about an hour. And that's for me, that was acceptable. If it takes about an hour and it's easy, then at least you put some time into it. And you'd find the odd game that you'd really like. I always use Brother as A Tale of Two Sons as an example here, where it's like a sort of a 3D-ish platformer where one brother's taller than the other, and they've both got different abilities. You control one with the left thumbstick, one with the right thumbstick, and they can help each other out to get through the game. You uncover little gems like that you don't expect to enjoy, like the first Freddy Spaghetti game, which we joke about. And Roombo, of course, Roombo First Blood. It's become a TMB favourite, that, isn't it? Even though I'm the only one to have played it.
It's becoming a cult classic. It certainly is, that's for sure, yeah.
But yeah, there's so much crap out there as well. You just think, oh my God. But that's a shame. What they've done with that. But it was a massive draw to me with a 360. And it wasn't just achievements as well. I generally have grown to love the 360, and we can go back to the arcade here as well, because they had what was called XBLA, which was Xbox Live Arcade Store. And literally, when I got it, I had a look at the arcade store, and the reason why it's still on that hard drive, because it's one of the very first games I bought. I sent the 89 Turtles arcade game. It was on the Xbox Live Arcade Store. I looked for a Street Fighter 2 game. The only one that was on there was Hyper Fighting. So I nabbed that as well. And obviously the Simpsons game came to it, the X-Men games came to it. So many arcade games did actually come to the Xbox Live Arcade. And I was going to say, I had to have them all. And I'll still dive into it now and buy one.
I always wanted a 360, because when we were deciding what to have, we went with the PlayStation 3 rather than that. But I'd always wanted one, and I think I got one about 2 years, just over about 2.5 years ago now. And I just think it's great. I really do like it. I've always liked the Xbox, original, and I love the 360. I've always wanted to have that in my collection and build up a decent game collection for it. It's not all just rubbish, but you got Kinect as well. I know you enjoy the Kinect.
Yeah, you're with me on that. You like the Kinect as well, and I don't know if you're with the same opinion to me, but I always feel like it's a guilty pleasure because not many people do enjoy it. So I feel like the fact that I am enjoying it, that it's almost like a guilty pleasure because so many people shun it. But I love it.
Great games for it. Great little games for it. And I mean, it's not perfect. I'll grant it that it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than some people make out.
There's some that are dire at picking you up, but then again, there's plenty that aren't. I mean, do you know what? Some of the fitness stuff on there does actually work. I've got to be honest with you. When I put a few lockdown pounds on it, cracked out a couple of the fitness games and used it, and got a bit of a sweat up, and it did actually, does actually work. Fair enough, you do actually need a lot more room than you realise as well. Unfortunately, it does require a lot of room. I mean, my living room is, it's a 1-bedroom flat, and it's quite it's a reasonable sized living room, but I still have to move the couch back so that I've got the room to use it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to play it. I'd be falling backwards onto it.
Imagine the problem I have in my game room.
You got no chance, mate.
I've got those, but it doesn't start having a go at it. I mean, where else can I conduct an orchestra on Fantasia?
I've still yet to play that.
What a great idea! What a great idea that is. I just think it's great, and I love the console. I really do. Did you buy one of the original ones, or did you buy one of the more modern versions of it?
You mean the one that didn't need a power supply?
Yeah.
Because I think you can buy. No, did they release them separately? There's one that's with a power supply because you can't plug it into the back of the older Xbox consoles, or there's the one that the one without, which is powered by your Xbox.
Yeah,
But there's two types. But
yeah, the one I've got plugs into the back, I think. So
yeah, same here. I've got that one as well.
yeah, but yeah, it's just a great system from start to finish, and that's why I like the Xbox full stop. I haven't played anything beyond that, but
I think Kinect is also a little bit like the Wii in the fact that you can get all ages can get involved. Like you can all get around and play Kinect bowling, and things like that. Like the Wii, everyone wanted to play Wii bowling, didn't they? Do you know what? There's a comedian that does a sketch, and it makes me laugh. He goes, I think it was the Wii users. He goes, oh, the Wii's great. He said, I've never seen my grandmother skiing in the before, and she can do that on that. So it's true. Like for all generations, they can all get involved. But no. It's the guilty pleasure, I feel like, but I love it.
Yeah, and the whole package, the 360 is just great, and there's some great games for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you like your races, you're sport on the 360. You're absolutely sport.
Well, the Forza series for a start is always a good starting point, but
both Motorsport Horizon.
Yeah,
spoiled.
I played those the first time, and I thought, wow! When I first got my 360, that was actually one of the first titles I got. I think it was Forza 3. I think I got because I'd never played one, so I desperately.
They started at 2 on that. Motorsport 2 is the first one on 360.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4 on the 360, and then Horizons, and then it went on to the Xbox One after that.
Xbox One, had Horizon 3 onwards. Even though they did have versions of Horizon 2 on there as well. But Motorsport 5 onwards was Xbox One.
And you got... Gone.
No, I was going to say, we're talking about the Xbox 360, and it's my prime opportunity to say it's got Gears of War.
It has. We've never heard you mention Gears of War before.
I never talk about this.
No, you never do. It's a secret obsession you've got.
I could honestly go about this all day, but I won't go on for it for too long. But I've always said, like, with shooters, like when I play like a Call of Duty game, I tend to skip the story sections and just go, oh, for God's sake, go away. I just want to shoot shit, and I'll skip past them, not even pay attention to the story section and just play the game. But with Gears of War, the story, I do give them a go at the beginning stories, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I got totally suckered in. And it took me on an emotional roller coaster, and I keep worrying. It's so powerful at one point in Gears 3. I still worry about talking about it on something like this in case I ruin it for someone who is going to start the franchise from scratch. Because if you think Gears 2 kicks you in the bollocks, Gears 3 rips them off, is all I'm going to say. It really does. Honestly, such a powerful story. And obviously led on to me putting over 1,000 hours into Gears 4. And Gears 5, it's all right.
One of the, again, early titles I got, did I get it when it first came out? I'm pretty sure when I bought my 360, Gears of War was one of the first games I bought for it, and because it was the collector's edition, it was the tin.
The tin, yeah.
And it was like 50p, and it had apart from not missing the plastic slipcover, it had everything else in there.
Right, yeah.
Everything else was there, and I actually said at the time when I first started buying 360, I thought I'm not going to go and just do what I do with everything else and just buy loads of games for it. I'm going to limit it. I'm going to buy the special editions. I'm going to buy the steel books. And I did for a while, but then that sort of fell by the wayside, and I just carried on buying everything else. But that got my interest in steel books, because I'm very proud of my Italian version of Alien vs Predator, which is a lovely looking steel book, but it's completely Italian.
Yeah, I've got that steel book as well, and it was actually very kindly gifted to me by. I had the game anyway, but Nath Retro One, he very kindly gifted me the steelbook of it, and I said I have to have that. It's beautiful, and you're right, it is a beautiful steelbook as well. But it's ironic you say that plastic slipcase is missing, because that is the thing that's always missing the most off that tin. Because I still haven't got, because you know me, all variants of it. I have got a tin version of the JTAG, but I haven't got a tin version of the Power One, because every time I find it for cheap, it's always got that plastic sleeve missing.
I think the other ones, steel ones. I've got the coverings to go with them. But that's the one I haven't got. But I know somewhere I can get that from. So I might just upgrade that one because mine's a bit touchy. Mine is down the store at the moment. I can't even remember it. I can't go and look at it and see what it looks like. But it's yeah, great system. I'm gonna say I absolutely love the system, and your Xbox journey carries on from there, doesn't it?
Yeah, obviously, I was still I didn't even need to buy my one when I did. I just decided to basically upgrade the power and then stop waiting because, again, I say I had the 360 library and there was still plenty of it for me to play through that I was enjoying. Do you know, with racing games, we didn't touch on Project Gotham, which is unfortunate, which unfortunately has just stopped. I'd love to see them make another one of those. Got to be honest with you.
I agree. Great series, and Blur as well. Which
Blur, I mean it's cross console, but I Blur is potentially one of the games I'd have picked if it wasn't an arcade edition we were doing here. But yeah, no, I decided to get the one as more of an upgrade and for all the apps and things like that. And you know, I'll be honest. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not into the console wars. You know, the best console is the console you play, than the one that you love to play, and the one that you like. All right, you know, for me, there's no choice. But hand on heart, I know the Xbox One lost that war. You know, by a fucking mile. You know, not even close. But you know, it's again, it's the achievement system, and it's the fact that there's the Gears of War 4 was on it, and there's always going to be the next Gears going to be on it, and I'm massively into that franchise. You know, a franchise can keep you with a console. You know, I'm pretty sure there's probably God of War fans that are like that with the PlayStation. It's quite funny as well that I mentioned God of War, because whenever I speak to a PlayStation fan, they're quoting and abbreviating games. They'll abbreviate God of War, and I think they mean Gears of War because they'll put GOW. But no, I was going to say, the one, and obviously with the one, the backwards compatibility thing came in as well. Even though it wasn't like every game, and games had to be added to the backwards compatible program, it was just another reason for me to kind of, you know, stick with the Xbox as well. Well, I was never going to switch. Once my gamer score was I think it was about 200,000 before I made the switch to the Xbox One, and then shortly after that it was at 250,000, and then I started doing YouTube and doing the journey.
And here we are.
And here we are owning a Series X now as well, which is which was the bucket list thing. You know, it was the bucket list thing for me. I keep saying, Shoes, like I kept consoles for years, and I always had them years after they came out. And for me, how long a system's going to be, physical system's going to be made for, is a constant discussion that we're having now. You know, a lot of people think there'll be one more. A lot of people think, nope, we're done, we're digital now. But I have never had a console on launch day, and it was just that bucket list thing for me to do. Do you know what? I was actually at work, and I let work build up and absolutely screw me and sweat me bollocks off for quite a while, because I had to go outside and get signal to order my Series X, and I didn't care. I went back. Honestly, I had to work my ass off for a good solid hour. Sweat was pouring off me, but I didn't care. I had my Series X, and I was going to have one on launch day. I was going to say it was just a bucket list thing for me, and it's an upgrade, and it is exactly that. It's ridiculous. You know, you turn it on. Literally, I turn the Xbox on. I turn the TV on. The Xbox is already on. By the time I picked up the remote and pressed the button, it's insanely quick. It is ridiculous. I know people say, no, you haven't got any exclusives for it, but Xbox did say when they released it, they're still supporting the One for 2 years. So even if they make Series X enhanced games, it's still going to be an Xbox One game as well. So that is where, you know, that's the route they've taken. And it's, you know, it's nice that they're still supporting the previous console for the people that can't get one straight away. You know, you're not going to be restricted to the exclusives. I know it's a bad example, but you can still play Cyberpunk on your Xbox One. You don't need the Series X, you know. So I like that thing that they did with it.
I know you got original Xbox a few months ago, didn't you?
Yes, Santa Sean. Love him a bit.
Have you gone on to get exclusives for that as well, or do you steer clear of that one for the time being?
I haven't, because I was going to say that the original Xbox never really jumped out and said buy me. I've got to be honest with you, it never did. I don't know why, to be honest with you. I mean, the reason why I've got that is because obviously Sean's a legend, and it's like modded with every cartridge-based game you could ever want on there, and loads of arcade stuff. But no, I mean, I have had Xbox original games and put them in there to, you know, and play it on there. You know, like I've got Outrun 2, which ironically Outrun 2 is one of the very few games for the original Xbox which will play on the 360. There are a handful of games that will do that. But I was going to say we'll still play Xbox original games, but no, I was going to say if I go back, I need the nostalgic connection, and I never had the original Xbox. I went straight in at 360 with Xbox. I had the Dreamcast, I had the PlayStation 1, so
yeah, I can understand that. I just wonder because there are going to be exclusive games on that system, and I know some people do collect just the exclusives. They don't want you mentioned the cross-platform, cross-console version, so they'll just go for whatever was exclusive for Xbox.
The only-ons, as they call them, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, what's your favourite? Is a 360 your favourite of all the Xbox, or would you?
Oh, of all the Xboxes, yeah, easily, 100%. That's the one I've been playing a lot of that lately, and can't beat it, mate. Can't beat it in my eyes. I was going to say, love it. Yeah. I was going to say, have you not seen the intro to my channel?
Yes,
it's the Xbox 360 startup screen, but obviously saying Gurnaldinho Plays instead of Xbox 360. And can I just give a massive plug, because I can't take credit for making that. Just give a massive plug to Chris of Retro 48K. He actually randomly made, because I was always one of these channels, by the way, it was never bothered about having an intro. I was always happy just to make my video, boom, there's what you want, it started. And just on Twitter, Chris follows me on Twitter, and one day he randomly just sent me a message and said, I think something like, I got bored one day and I made you an intro. You're more than welcome to use it if you don't want anything for it. I went, all right, okay, let's have a look at this then. And I saw that and I went, need. I need that. And I said, mate, thank you so much. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I can't thank him enough for making that for us, because I ain't got the know-how to make that. I would never take credit for anything that isn't mine. And Chris is a very talented guy. I know he's made other people's intros as well. I think he's made David Retro Games Play Badlies. I think he's made Geordie Slashers as well. So yeah, he's a very talented man. So hats off to him. Thank you very much again.
Yeah, former inhabitant of the desert island as well. I think he was.
Of course, he was one of the early ones, wasn't he?
He was number 2. He was number 2. And he did offer at the time to do me an intro as well, but because Mrs. Bear does a lot of my work, I didn't take him up on the opportunity. But no, he's a nice lad, is Chris, and very generous with that as well. And it was great to have him on here last year. He was very enthusiastic about being on as well. So, but again, it's community, isn't it, Rob? It's people putting, coming to just offering. I can do this for you, and I don't want anything for it.
I say it's just random acts of kindness, isn't it? And just goes to show you that there's plenty of good people out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't have to do that, but honestly, I love it so much. Can't imagine my channel being without it now.
I can't either. And the thing is, you can look at that introduction and automatically know if it's your channel.
It's me as well.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're trying to say. That it's just me.
For those of us who know you, it's like it's absolutely perfect. It couldn't be anything else. So, maybe a trophy on the end of it or an achievement or something like that. No, but yeah, no. Right then. So we'll that's your gaming history. So we'll now move on to the final 2 games of your 6 list. One slightly out of sequence, but again. We'll cover that one, but another great one as well, which I want to talk about afterwards. But we'll go back to the oldest one that was on there.
There was an early one. I kind of said a version of it when I was talking about the Xbox Live Arcade then, didn't I, as well? But I was going to say, absolutely, again, arcade, love the arcades. And there was I think everyone knows where I'm going with this. I had to have a fighter in there. I love my fighting games. I was going to say, nearly all of them, we'll get to that in a minute, nearly all of them. And this came along and it was like nothing we'd ever seen before. It revolutionized the arcades for its time, came along, took over them, and that is Street Fighter 2. Specifically for me, I know someone else has picked this before, but I couldn't not pick this just because someone else has picked it before. Retro Red Steve, that was, I believe. But the Championship Edition, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, because obviously we had the original game in 1987, which everybody rightfully didn't even know about or forgot about. Everyone didn't even realise Street Fighter 2 was actually a sequel. I think a lot of people, including myself, actually. I think I learned about the original after I came across Street Fighter 2.
Well, just before we get on, I remember the original not being very good at all. And then I remember seeing people reading about Street Fighter 2, people talking about Street Fighter 2, and start saying, well, what's the big deal? The original game was rubbish. They just made a sequel to a rubbish game.
It's a clunky mess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. The home conversions are even worse.
Yeah,
they were utterly awful. So I was dead surprised this game was getting a sequel, because I thought, well, it's going to be rubbish anyway. But I was obviously wrong. I didn't know anything.
Well, there's a lot of mixing stories with Final Fighters, because I think the first Final Fight was going to be Street Fighter 2, and then obviously that got to be Final Fight, and then Street Fighter 2 becomes Street Fighter 2. But yeah, I mean, I've played that original Street Fighter on the 30th anniversary collection. As I say, it's a clunky mess, and it's the only way I could finally beat the boss was I was like, I'm trying to do the fireball. Why can I not do the fireball? Because you can only be Ryu. I think in 2-player, the second player is Ken, and you fight each other. And I was like, the only way I could beat it, just to absolutely proper mash the buttons and wiggle the joystick about like mad. And he'd done 2 fireballs and a Dragon Punch by accident. Boom, 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 game over. But no, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. I think the original Street Fighter 2 was 91, and then the Championship Edition was basically the game's first ever update. I mean, the reason why I have to pick it over the original is you not only can be the bosses, but it brought in the ability to pick the same character. Obviously, just color swap. So you can, all of a sudden, better not use Ryu as an example. You could have Blanca versus Blanca. Obviously, like Ryu and Ken was just so that they are different in a very similar kind of way. Ryu's fireballs are stronger, but Ken has a stronger Dragon Punch. Yada yada. But I was going to say it was one of those games that just absolutely it took over the arcades. It really did. It it literally was everywhere. We spoke about earlier. Like when I said I come out of swimming lessons and I could have a go on WrestleFest. Yeah. One day WrestleFest disappeared and Street Fighter 2 was put in its place. That actually happened. But this game was literally everywhere. It was an absolute phenomenon. Whether you like fighting games or not, it was everywhere. An arcade would have 6 versions of the game because people wanted to play it so much, or just 6 copies of the game in a row, sort of thing. And there was one arcade. I think only one arcade I can remember that went to that had a sign on it saying that this is an accepting challengers cabinet. So basically, if you were playing it, somebody wanted to play you couldn't say no, and it would get a queue. It was, you know what I mean? It's just unreal that things that, like, you'd have the other cabinets where people go, oh, do you want to play, mate? You said, oh, no, thanks. I'd rather play the computer and things like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it brought the head-on competition in fighting games to the arcades, really, and properly. But
I've never heard of that before. That's absolutely fascinating.
Great concepts. I was going to say, but I knew a lot of arcades that had multiple cabinets because that was the demand for it. I was going to say, it was a phenomenon for me. I loved it, and I've always said to people, it's actually a lot more strategic than some people may realise. I've always taken on the game with countering as the best form of attack, because if you know everything can be countered in a way, if you learn every opponent, you learn your character. You kind of have to sort of have a main, as we call it. Fighting game fans have a main in every character, as we call, in every game, as we call it. And obviously my main was Ryu, and that's the one that you put a lot of time in it and learn combos and things like that. But if you come up against somebody that just keeps jumping at you and just wants to just attack you non-stop, and you know what you're doing, you'll win. It is a very strategic. You get somebody else that knows that it can be much more of a strategic battle. You'll have a much better fight, a much more fun fight, a much more sort of a bit more of a chess battle going on. And honestly, I absolutely adore it. And as I say, it came to the Mega Drive and Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. Had to have it as early as possible, and I put so much time into it at home. I really did.
Yeah, I have got a copy. I've got a copy of the Super Nintendo version as well. I think it's probably the first fighting game I actually played where the concept of having to block was relevant. And to be honest with you, that where I sort of lost interest and glazed over. Then I thought, it's bad enough I've got to learn how to do special moves, which is odd obviously anyway. But I now have to factor in I need to block opponents' moves at the same time. No, thank you. I'm just not. But
the good thing about the block is obviously it stops you just getting absolutely spammed. Again, it was another. It's another part of the strategy.
That used to happen an awful lot to me, so that's why.
I mean, the other thing is if you got low on health, and you blocked a fireball, it still did what we call chip damage. It's not
Yeah,
100%
a
block as
little bit
well.
off. Yeah.
So you've got your energy bar to balance with if you choose to block fireballs and things like that.
It always used to cause great consternation and arguments among my mates because you can guarantee there was going to be one fight or a couple of fights that were going to end where one of them was saying, "I fucking blocked that," and that's where the arguments would start. And
Yeah.
it's like playing Mario Kart. It's a fucking red shell I threw that at you. Whether it's missed you. How did that miss you, sort of thing. And that's where the arguments start from.
And the other thing, you can't block a throw either.
No, that's very true. You can't.
They're going to throw you. That's it. Don't block. Better attack them quickly.
But
no, for me, it was always it was the perfect balanced fighting game. It really was. Still is. I love it. Of all Street Fighters I go back to, it's still Championship Edition for me. Always, I just love it. Hyper Fight was the only one available on the Xbox Live Store, so that was one I bought from there. But
yeah, I mean it's a juggernaut, isn't it? It's a well-known franchise. It's not my favourite style of game. Everybody knows that, but everybody I've spoken to about these games are so passionate about them, like you are, and you've mentioned Steve was as well before. Street Fighter 2 comes up all the time in these sort of conversations, and rightly so. It's 30 years old. I mean, 30 years old now from Street Fighter 2, aren't we? 1991 to
91, yeah.
So it's. I'm surprised have they done anything special for it?
Well, they say they had the 30th anniversary collection, didn't they? Released.
That was last year, though.
On the one and the PS4.
I'm just wondering. I suppose we could, with the first game being so terrible, that you thought they might have done something this year for the 30th anniversary of Street Fighter 2.
Oh, Street Fighter 2. Yeah, sorry, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to. You think about it. It's never. No one's ever taken its crown, if you ask me.
No. And it's also, if I remember correctly, revolutionised that genre.
Absolutely,
because
it launched it.
They were side-scrolling beat 'em ups, but they weren't. It wasn't one-on-one like that with the big sprites, the moving backgrounds, and then you knew they were onto something because Sega brought out Eternal Champions on the Mega Drive, which was not quite as good. There was Body Blows on the Amiga, which was again not, and it just cloned and different things. I don't think like King of Fighters, etc. Sort of.
Well, the only game that really competed with it had to do something different, and they went all out gore, didn't they? They went Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat. I think the first one was 92, so it was a year or so after, wasn't it? I think it was 92, 93. Yeah, and that obviously that took into the spotlight because of what he did with the fatalities and things like that. I mean, that game. See, like for me, Street Fighter 2. Even just the original one with the 8 characters is still very playable today and hasn't really aged. But that first Mortal Kombat has aged horrendously. At the time, I loved it as an alternative, and I could still play it and still enjoy it. I go back now, and it's just like every character's got the same moves except for their 1 or 2 special moves and the fatalities.
Street Fighter 2 has that iconic look to it, and I think it looks better than Mortal Kombat. Although they can see what Mortal Kombat were trying to do with the digitized sprites, and it looks a bit ropey nowadays. But you would probably argue that if we didn't have Street Fighter 2, then we wouldn't have had the genres that the game series that followed after it, that tried to emulate it, that may have improved on it. Would anything else have come along? Would Mortal Kombat have changed that? Maybe. Would they gone in a different direction with it? I don't know. Would we have got Mortal Kombat if we didn't have Street Fighter
2? Who knows?
Yeah.
The only thing I will say is Mortal Kombat 2, I can go back and play. That's much more polished, much better roster, much more variation in every character's moves.
I find Mortal Kombat easy to get on with because I can actually get through that by doing punch kick without actually knowing the special moves. So when I had the Mega Drive version, I was able to do that and get quite far with it. Well, I think Street Fighter 2, as you said, you've got to be a bit more tactical. You said if you just start jumping around attacking people, you're going to end up losing because a more seasoned player is going to sit back and just sort of pick you off. So, yeah, interesting, that one. Right then, last game on your list. And
last game on the like list.
And I like this choice.
And it nearly didn't make it.
I'm thrilled it did. Because
thrilled it did. No worries.
It's a game I played on the PlayStation 1 and I didn't know an awful lot about it.
Even
But
though it was released years after the arcade version,
I know, but
like
I
3 years
knew,
after.
yeah, I knew nothing about it at all. Didn't know what it was, but I bought it when it came out because it looked and sounded quite fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had many games of this ilk, if at all. So that's why I'm thrilled
Well,
about it.
like I said, arcade edition, and I was obviously thinking genres, taking the question seriously, breaking up the genres. And of course, if you're restricted just to arcade cabs, you've got to have a light gun game. And I must admit, the game that I nearly chose was the original House of the Dead. Because
Yeah,
I must admit, two's good, but I could play the first one over and over again. I really love it. Again, it's a whole nostalgia thing. I know the route, you can go off in different routes actually. If you shoot the hatch on the floor, save the right hostage. Even when you transfer into the next section, there's pots in the background you can shoot, which will have extra lives in it. But anyway, the reason why I chose the next game is because I think it had more replayability within getting high scores continuously, improving on your high scores. And that is a game that I used to look for in the arcades, walking in and out of one until I found it. And that is Point Blank, the first one.
lovely. Because I was going to ask you why not House of the Dead, but you've answered that question. So that's good. But yeah, Point Blank. And the reason I got it to the PlayStation 1 because I bought Time Crisis and I got a G-Con 45 to play it with. And I thought, I'll just give this a go, see what it's like. It is amazingly good. Amazingly good.
Just addictive. Here we go again. Simple. Addictive, simple, fun. And I was going to say where the replayability in this is much better than House of the Dead, I'll say, is just that, like, if you're the highest score on the day for that particular game, it will flash up, won't it? So you get that sort of explosion around your score, don't you? Saying today's highest score. And I was just thinking, well, I love playing it over and over again, but you can always just play it over and over again and try and beat your score, can't you? So
that's right.
But no, I was addicted to Point Blank. I was always looking for it. And, there was the three difficulties, wasn't it? The easy one was pointless because it had hardly any games in it. Yeah. And it's a one playthrough, one credit thing, isn't it? So a lot of the time I used to pick the middle one, but then I got to the stage where I was always picking expert because, to be honest with you, it wasn't that much more difficult than normal anyway. You just had to do more.
Yeah.
I mean, I always had the trick when you had to shoot a lot of things on screen. I always had the trick of holding the gun, but instead of holding it normally with your right hand and shooting as you would, you hold it with your left hand. You put your this is going to sound rude, put your right finger in the trigger across it, and you just rock your finger backwards and forwards in a motion. So your finger hits the forward bit and then goes backwards straight away, and you do that. And that would enable you to do the ones where you had to shoot a lot. Didn't you have to shoot a spaceship like 100 times or something?
It was something like that.
You shoot the same object 100 times or something. And if you try and fire a gun normally, it was just a waste of time. Well, it was harder. So yeah, and there was the one-shot games, wasn't there? Like the apple off matey's head.
Oh
the feather falling. Oh, that feather fucks me over so many times.
You got one shot, and you got to make sure it's on the money. Otherwise, that was it, wasn't it? Yeah,
that was it. Life lost.
Challenging game. This is. I had it originally, and then obviously it disappeared when somebody broke it and stole it. And then I went to an event in London, probably 2000 I can't remember, 2015, I think it was, 14, 15. I actually went as a member of the press, which is a really interesting story in itself. Because somebody found my YouTube channel and invited me to come down as a guest to. I had my website. That's probably about 2011 then. I had my website, and I was doing gaming content on there. And they contact me out of the blue saying, we'd like you to come down as a member of the press and sort of advertise this on your website afterwards and write a review of the day. So I went all the way down to London. It wasn't very far away from Arsenal, I think. Because if I remember the tube station, it said Highbury this way, so I couldn't have been too far away from there. And they got all these games set up. Like, you got that modern gaming convention, all the games set up and systems set up, and they got the multiplayer Saturn Bomberman going on. They got a couple of the game composers to come down and do a disco in the evening. Disco, you know what I mean? Disco a long time ago. But, house mix their music, and they got this retro area set up at the back. And one of the first games I walked into and saw there was Point Blank on the PlayStation 1. I thought, I had this years ago. And I was there for half an hour. I thought I can't keep hogging because people wait to play. I can't keep hogging. I was there for half an hour playing it. This is all coming back to me. It's brilliant. It's like I was absolutely thrilled, and I haven't got it since. And I've got to try and get myself a copy of that.
I mean, I'm on my desert island on my own, but it's still it's still great head to head.
You could actually do two hands, couldn't you? You could on your own. You could do two hands.
You could do, yeah, but you'd take a life off yourself because you'd be winning on one side.
I know, but it's being competitive, isn't it? So it's you could try and train a monkey or a jellyfish or a crab or something to join in.
Funny you mentioned, because I used to do the 2-gun thing on House of the Dead. Actually, that used to be fun. But yeah, I'd just like to say, by the way, it was hard to ignore Time Crisis 2. I would say I love Time Crisis 2, the 2 split screens, and I could one credit that my Sega Park had that, and I got played it so much I could one credit it. And the first Time Crisis, I actually used to dismiss. I used to look at it and think, well, that's a one-player gun game. That don't look too great. Just one game. One day I thought I'll give that a go, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
What was I thinking? But it was hard not to pick Time Crisis 2, but again, kind of already knew the game very well, and I get the feeling that I would get to know the game very well, and it would be a waste of a choice to take to me. But Point Blank's better anyway, so whatever.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love House of the Dead, and I like Time Crisis, and Virtua Cop as well, which is the big like arcade game at the time. But yeah, Point. I never actually played it in the arcade. I only played it at home, so I probably missed out on that one. But like guns again, they've been around for years. Going back to the home system, the 64 had one, the Spectrum had one, the Master System had one, the NES had one. And it's nice that we've got technology now where we can still have a light gun game of sort.
Yeah, disappeared for a while, didn't it?
They did, but I think it was the Wii, wasn't it? I think
the Wii, it was able to cope with it, wasn't it, with its sensor? So yeah.
And now you got the PlayStation Move was able to do it on that as well. So, but you just have the peripherals for it. It's sort of an actual light gun. It's when the G-Con 45, the PlayStation 1, was absolutely immense piece of kit. Great big grey thing with a red button on it. And that silent scope sniper rifle I picked up for the Xbox. I mean, that is just something else. You don't see it anymore now. It's a real shame.
I've only played Time Crisis on my PS1. I'm the other way around. I've never played Point Blank on a home console. I only played it in the arcade.
Yeah, it's definitely wrong. I'm going to have to try and step up my efforts to just get hold of that. Hope it and get my CRT out of storage, 14-inch CRT out of storage, and see how I get on with it. Mind you, that's all I played it on back in the day. I only played it on I think it was a, about 17-inch portable anyway.
So Time Crisis was going to play in my bedroom at my parents' house. I was, on a very small screen.
Yeah,
you had to get so close; it was hardly worth it.
Well, I just played Time Crisis on it as well. There's something else I played on it and all. I'm pretty sure of it, but yeah. Light gun games are fantastic, but I like that choice. I really do. That's brought back a few memories just talking about it. No. Oh dear, excuse me again. Right, so quicker than usual, unusually for something like this. We've only done 2.5 hours so far. We get
console history, aren't I?
Well, I don't know. I think there's been less tangents. It's been more focused, hasn't it? I suppose so. It's one of them.
I talk fast as well.
We've now come to the final 2 games on your list. One which we leave at the very end, which is the game you absolutely hate. But the one we asked you to pick before that is a game where, again, tripping over my own words, but I always say a game that you perhaps played, you didn't get into, or a game that you played and didn't put enough time into, or something that you left alone or you wanted to come back to at a certain point but never did, etc., etc. Now I did mention this, excuse me, beforehand, that somebody else has mentioned this game in a different section of the list. So.
But it hasn't been broadcast yet, so I haven't heard what they've had to say about it.
Yeah, you haven't heard that. I have.
You have, so I'll be interested.
But yeah, be interested to see. I won't tell you where it finished either, so you'll have to wait and see when that comes out in a couple of weeks' time, or 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah. Well, as we said, this is arcade, and obviously, if I'm in the arcade, it's going to have to be something that grabs my attention, and I'm going to want to at least try, at least want to play. And obviously, like I've said, I'm into my fighting games. So it's a fighting game, no shock there, but it's Killer Instinct. And I have to say that because I love fighting games, I really do. And generally, I can appreciate all the bigger franchises for something, but there's something about Killer Instinct that I've always struggled with to really get on with and to really, I don't know, I don't want to say like, that's harsh, perhaps appreciate.
Mm.
And I've
Yeah.
tried multiple times. Because they made they made a new Killer Instinct as a launch title for the Xbox One, and that's actually good. There's nothing wrong. I like that. That's a lot of fun. And I remember, I think if you bought certain packages, it come with the classics. And so even as recently as a few years back, I gave I think the first two a go again, and I'm just like, I really am struggling with these. I find them quite slow and a lot more clunky than other fighting games. And do you know, again, I don't know why in some aspects, because I look at the roster and I think it's got a really solid roster. Again, like one thing I forgot to mention about Street Fighter 2 is I always found the balance of the roster. You know, you had Dalsim, you know, slow but had the reach, and Blanca was quick but he had no fight. You know, the characters always seem to balance with the strengths and the weakness. It's got a good roster. I mean, it's got I don't know if it's pronounced Jago or Jargo or whatever. You got him who's basically your Ryu and Ken style character, and then you've got TJ Combo, your boxer. You got your dinosaur Riptor, your skeleton man called Spinal, and then you've got Cinder and Glacius, who are basically, you know, your Sub-Zero and your sort of Scorpion characters. Chief Thunder, you got your Orchid, you got your Woman in Sable. It's got a great roster of balanced characters, but I always found it just a little bit slow and clunky for me for some reason.
Right.
I found the moves a lot harder to pull off. I know you had that ultra combo at the end, which I can never seem to pull off, even if I had the code in front of me. Whereas fatalities in Mortal Kombat, I could.
Mm.
And I always, do you know what? I want to like it because it's a big game. And do you know what? One of the biggest fighting game fans on YouTube absolutely adores this franchise as well. Maximilian Dude, his name is, absolutely adores this game. And I can't get on with it, and I just don't know why. I want to. So I keep thinking, do you know what? I keep putting time into it, but not a lot. And I keep putting time into it and not a lot. So maybe if I was stuck there on a desert island and had hours to put into it and needing to mix up playing it, that I could perhaps do something with this game that triggers it into me really liking it.
Yeah. I don't think you're the only person who had that logic behind certain games, and I certainly feel the same way about a lot of stuff I've played over the years, and it's like, oh, it's not quite as responsive or tight as I'd like it to be, or that sounds rude, but I know, but it's just there's just something about it. You think, you know what, it doesn't quite sit right with me. Again, the game I don't know much about. I always get confused with Primal Rage for some reason.
Yeah, do you know, I didn't mind Primal Rage. I don't. But for me, I always saw Primal Rage as a bit of fun fighting game, not serious at all.
Yeah.
Whereas Killer Instinct is a big franchise. You know, it's a big player. You know, it's Rare's fighting game. You know, it's not a silly fun fighting game. It is a serious one. There, you know, it has had tournaments in the past. You know, and I can't get on with it. Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, Street Fighter, love them all. Could happily sit down and play them all for an hour at a time, but I couldn't sit down and play Killer Instinct for an hour.
No.
Just couldn't do it.
You'd have the opportunity to do so it's the ideal game to take with you, isn't it?
To take with me. And as I say, I love fighting games, you know, and I like to be good at them as well, or at least hold my own.
And the longevity is going to be there as well, because you've got all the different characters, therefore you have to learn all the moves and then go through with each character in turn through the mode, and so there's plenty of playability there.
I said plenty of combos to learn, because it was a game that kind of really cared about the combos when it was made. You know, it says on the screen if you've done a 3 or 4 hit combo from game one, I believe. You know, and obviously it's got the ultra combo at the end that you can pull off. But I always found even the basic special move as well just quite not as polished and as easy to do as other fighting games. You know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm built better for the other fighting games. Maybe in my head and the way my hands work. I don't know.
Well, it could be. You'll find out with the time spending playing it. But no, again, it's you could substitute that in for other games and say, I've played other games of its ilk. This one just doesn't feel quite as polished or attached. You get attached to something, don't you? You don't quite feel the affinity towards it than the other. If you lined up the other ones you mentioned, and you line that one up, you're going to go, well, I'm going to go with those first before that one. The
others, we know, so I played, I enjoyed. They stayed with me or they grew on me. This has just never been able to achieve it. And maybe it's because I haven't put, I need to sit down with it for longer. I don't know, but if it doesn't grab you from the start, it's always going to be hard. And when you feel something's a bit clunky and slow, which I keep saying, and to me off, you just don't feel it from the start.
I tell you, a game that sort of crops up around this time now is usually something like Breath of the Wild, because some people play that for hours and immediately get into it, and other people will play it for the same length of time and not get into it. So,
like me.
Yeah, and me too. I ain't got time to sit down and play that, and I wasn't getting anywhere when I did put the time into it anyway. But with this one here, it's going to be, someone could probably play that for a period of time and be straight into it. You could play it the same period of time as you have done and think, well, there's something not quite right about this. Yeah. And if it doesn't grab you like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to get into it. So you either make the decision to, you know what, I'm not going to go that, or yes, I'm going to persevere and see how I get on.
But I was to say, the key thing here is a game that you want to try and persevere with. I just want to state that this game, I do not think is a bad game.
A lot of these
games, sitting. Yeah, it's just not sitting with me.
Yeah, a lot of these games aren't bad games. They are generally very, very good games. It's just that it's if I think about, I'm just looking through. I won't mention it because we haven't. You have heard some of these already, but I'm just looking at some of the games that have appeared in this section now, and I'm thinking there's some absolutely cracking games in this people put in this section here. Some absolutely cracking games, and you can see why they've done it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't even hate this game.
No, but they don't hate those games either. It's just a game that and a lot of them tend to be. They're not standalone games. A lot of these games have been sort of sequels. So you'll see slightly different. It's a standalone game, not in a series, but it's a genre which you know very well, and that should apply to this game, but it doesn't. You know, the same process of the side-on beat 'em up. If you enjoyed Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, etc., then you should love this. But
yeah,
it's not quite the same.
It's a game with the genre I love that I can't get on with. Yeah, it's whereas most people pick a game outside of a genre.
Yeah,
that they do love and they don't like. Like I could go easily if I wasn't doing arcade cabs. I could easily pick a Zelda game or a Final Fantasy game just because I don't like them style of games. But maybe I should give them a try because my head just says you don't like that style of game, so you don't play it. But what if you actually sat down with one of them for a couple of hours? You might think, well, actually, I see what these people are on about now.
Yeah, that's why in a situation like this, if it was me doing, being on a desert island, I would probably consider something like that because I don't like those sort of games. I've tried some of them, I don't like them, but I would be in an ideal position to do something like that. So there we go. Right, we're still staying with fighting games, aren't we?
With me, it was always going to happen, mate. It's one of my big main genres.
So we get to the fun part, the very, very fun part at the end. The game that, for some reason, has ended up on the desert island with you. Not quite sure how it's got there. The one that you absolutely hate.
Absolutely hate.
And at some point, you're going to have to play, I'm afraid.
Going to have to play it. Try and master an unmasterable game, yeah.
Because we got CCTV around the desert island, so until you've actually put some time into this game, you ain't coming off there. I don't care what else you played and how long you played it for. If you haven't played this game for a considerable period of time, we ain't picking you up and staying there until we decide. It's like the Truman Show. Yeah.
I love that film.
Yeah. There you go. So you know what you need to do.
Yeah. I was going to say, we are sticking with fighting games. Like I said, basically, same build up for Killer Instinct about this game. It's a fighting game. I'm going to give it a try. I even thought it looked awful, and I still gave it a try. It's Pitfire.
Pit Fighter.
Pit Fighter.
Not Pete Fighter. Pit Fighter.
Pit Fighter, yes. Do you know what? I was it the first game that actually did live action actors in a game, in a fighting game? I don't know.
I think it was one of the first.
It was one of the first. It was before Mortal Kombat. I know that much because this was 1990.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was 92, so I know that much. But every time I play it, it's just an unbalanced mess. If you ask me, you get to that point where you can punch the other guy 10 times, and you've took away about a quarter of his health, and because you're at this particular stage, one wallop, half your bar's gone. I honestly try to find some redeeming quality, and you know me, I like to try and remain positive about nearly everything. I can't find something out of this game that I've really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, it just seems to handle awfully as well. I know it's not on a sort of a 2D platform. You can go up and down. You know what I mean? You can move around. Well, is there actually a pit in the game? Is another thing, isn't it? It's sort of
as fighters. I don't.
But yeah, the term is the pit.
Yeah,
it's the fight, the situation they're in, rather than an actual pit. Yeah, but yeah, I'd like to meet somebody who likes this game and have them talk me into why they like it. If you exist,
there must be somebody out there. I'm not going to say it's somebody's favourite game of all time, but I don't think I'd like to meet that person.
I was going to say it makes collections as well for some reason. I know this was originally released by Atari, I want to say.
I think you're right.
It's on the Midway Arcade Origins compilation on the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
So
I think it might be Midway. I can't see. Have I got a copy handy? It's all right because Martin, that UK game.
I'm pretty sure I saw it on Midway Arcade Origins, but it had the Atari logo next to it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't get it. What's that all standing on that forklift truck with all the money all about? I mean, after the fight, what do you buy the money with? That's just your score, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I know you can pick up weapons as well. They get chucked in from the crowd or are just there anyway. You can throw a chair at them or something. I don't know.
I remember when this came out, and there was obviously because of the way the graphics were done, there was a lot of hype around it. And then when it came out for all the home systems, it was utterly awful. I don't think there was a good version of it.
It weren't good in the arcade, mate.
Well, that's what I couldn't understand, because, like I said, there's a lot of hype about it, and I can't remember if it's good hype or bad hype. It must have been around how it looked, because it's a terrible, terrible game, and it's almost like a joke now of that particular genre to say this is probably the worst, maybe even worse now, worse reputation than the original Street Fighter.
It makes me wonder if it was the first to live digitized, because that was the appeal of it.
But it got converted to absolutely everything. There's a Game Boy version, isn't there, I think?
Yeah.
Why?
All the micros got it, didn't they?
All the micros got, all the 16-bit got it. It came out on the Mega Drive, Super Nintendo. Came out on the Master System. I know because Martin sent me a copy of it. I used to like Martin. He's all right. And he sent me that.
In no way it came out on the NES, though, surely.
I don't. Oh, I couldn't tell you if it did or didn't.
No. I don't actually know.
But as you said, it appeared on the Midway compilation. Weren't there other games that they could have stuck on there instead of that one? But people remember it because of how it looked. So it's one of those games. It's a game of its time, no doubt about it. As you said, Mortal Kombat looks a little bit ropey now. So I'm guessing it suffers a little bit from that. But I can't find a redeeming quality about this game in the slightest.
I'm glad you can't.
No, I can't.
Because I can't. And if there's someone out there that can, there's a comment section below. Go for it.
Yeah.
Win us over, comment section.
Please let us know, because I completely agree with you. It's just absolutely terrible. Yeah. A real stinker to finish on that one. Absolutely.
All I can say is I'm glad there's the Midway Arcade Origins game, which I have at just 1,000 G'd, has 41 achievements. It's one per game, and thank God the achievement on Pit Fight 2, I think, was for getting to level 3, and I was able just to mash punch and just about do it.
And
I only had to play it once on that compilation.
There wasn't a sequel, was there? There wasn't a sequel by any chance.
What, Pit Fighter 2?
Yeah.
Honestly, I doubt it.
I'd hope not. That's sort of
Certainly never heard of it if there is one.
wishful thinking if that's the case. But yeah, but I just mean it was just exceptionally popular at the time. Just remember it being very, very popular. Doesn't mean it's any good.
It had a really good looking cab, though. I'll give it that. You'd see it and it'd draw you in.
Yeah,
and another big built one.
Yeah, I think
wasn't it 3-player? Is that a 3-player cab?
Don't know.
Done me now a little bit there.
I mean the way the artwork on the cab was rather good as well. If I remember, again, you'd see that and you go, "Oh yes, Pit Fighter."
Yeah, good artwork sells, and this is a fine example of it.
Yes, because there's nothing else to it other than that. And it's just a terrible game through and through. I don't always agree with this choice at the end, but yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
You're not won me over.
Get a point for that, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We'll have you back on again.
One YouTube point. Thank you. Get it down.
You're still going to play it before you get off the island.
All right, okay.
I'm still going to make you play it. Yeah, and that brings us to the end. We've got through everything on that list, which is fantastic for our arcade edition of Desert Island games, and I hope you all agree with me at the same time that some of the selections that Rob's put in here are absolutely fantastic, apart from Pit Fighter. But Pit Fighter is where it deserves to be.
But it's a fantastic selection still, because it's meant to be bad.
Yeah, it is. You've ticked all the boxes. It's been fascinating to hear about your gaming history. And you said it's not as long as other people's, but as I said at the very start,
I just hung on to consoles.
Yeah, and starting with the arcades has been your big experience at the very, very beginning. You know, everyone's different. It's how we get to this point in our.
I was going to say that's why I was very when I put this idea forward to you. You know, I said to you, you don't have to decide if you want. We can do Desert Islands as you've done it, but arcades is me. It's without arcades, I am not what I am today. Certainly, gaming wise, I don't exist gaming.
And the good news is, in that case, you may get to come back on for a second go. And we'll talk about your console.
We'll talk about Gears of War.
Yeah, you could bring 1 to 5 with it. They may have even bought 6 out by the time we get round to doing it.
Well, there is 6 if you count Judgment, and that can go in the games I should play a little bit more of.
Yeah,
because that one is great.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he going to sit in that one? Because I thought he might sit in the other one, to be honest with you. But there we go.
No, it's not bad. It just needs a little bit of effort.
But no, it's been brilliant, and I hope everybody who's listened to this has really enjoyed it as well. Slightly different, we said, but I think absolutely worthwhile doing. And go to show that we're not just focusing on console games and console history. It's arcades were a massive part of a lot of gamers' experiences growing up. Their first experiences, where they spent a lot of time in their teenage years. Be it in arcades or standing around chip shops playing Pengo or whatever, and those sort of things that they're very important. And as we said right at the very start, from those, a lot of games that we would have played on our home systems have come from that. So it's a massive part. Sadly, a generation and era that's long gone. But as we said, through these retro arcade clubs, something which is still there and hopefully appealing to the new generation of game as opposed to ourselves. We shall see from that. Have you enjoyed it, my friend?
I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Good.
Thank you for having us. Honestly,
no,
it's been a blast.
I know we talk on a very regular basis, which is why it's a bit strange to do something like this. But there's stuff that I've not known about. We've been mates for a couple of years now. I've not known about half that stuff on there, and I would never have guessed certainly a couple of those games on your list for sure. I would never guess Point Blank or Space Invaders. So you surprised me.
Space Invaders was just like, I really should give a nod to the arcade's history, and there's nothing better than a high score game that will keep you going back to want to beat it more. But mate, honestly, as soon as you said yes to arcades, I was like, I'm gonna love this even more than if we was doing a standard episode, because if we were to talk about all the arcade stories I have, we'd need another 3 hours. Honestly, I've got so many. Probably loads I forgot that I'm going to wish I would have mentioned after we go off air. But yeah, Long live the arcade.
We'll bring you back for a second go, maybe. We'll see how we get on. But yeah, as I said right at the very, very start of this, if you haven't come across Rob's channel before, there will be a link in the description below. Do go across and check him out. I mean, I am slightly biased because we are good mates, but he's got some fantastic content on there. It's not all gaming as well. As we mentioned at the very start, it's always very important that sometimes to have variety on these channels. So there's other things on there to go. But if you don't know him, go across and have a look. Really, really nice guy, and an absolute pleasure to consider him a friend. And that's really good, and delight to have you on, mate. Thank you so much for doing this.
I can say exactly likewise about you, my friend, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be on. So yeah, loved it.
That's great, mate. Thank you very much indeed. If you have enjoyed this, please don't forget to check out the other Desert Island episodes in the archive on my channel. We try and get one of these uploaded every Saturday morning to give people time to do them, because they aren't short videos. I appreciate that, but it's an interesting way to while away a Saturday morning, or something you can download and take with you for the rest of the week. Also, if you have enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and tick the bell for further notifications when they go up for the videos. Once again, thank you to Gurnaldinho Plays Rob for giving up his time for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And this is the Retro Bear saying thanks very much for listening. I'll talk to you again very, very soon. But until then, do take care, and bye for now.